Hello, everyone, and a very good morning to all of you. Distinguished delegates, presenters, and participants from SARC member states and other regions around the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very thankful to all of you for joining us in the SARC webinar on the study review of existing feasibility study of Karnali Chissapani hydropower for defining the way forward to materialize its development as a regional hydropower project. My name is Muhammad Umar Mukhtar and I am working at SARC Energy Center as a research fellow in energy, transport and environment. I shall be moderating today's SARC webinar, the aim of which is to disseminate the findings and recommendations of the study report among the stakeholders for adding value and making consensus of the terms of reference for updating the existing feasibility study to the policymakers, regulators, researchers, academia and other stakeholders from the member states. A part of our webinar includes presentations on the dissemination of a detailed study report. The study was conducted last year by a team comprising of three-member group from India and Nepal, and we are blessed to have them today with us. In addition to that, we have representative from the World Bank to represent World Bank engagement in hydropower and regional integration, and various financial instruments in supporting hydropower. And also, we have representative from Elan Partners Private Limited to present on strategy and challenges for development of Karnali Chisapani as a regional power project. The webinar is structured in a way to disseminate the findings and recommendations of the study report among the stakeholders for adding value and making consensus of the teams of the terms of reference for updating the existing feasibility study. The webinar will disseminate the feasibility studies carried out in the past for the Karnali Chisapani project since 1966 and defining the way forward to materialize its development as a regional hydropower plant. The possible participants of the webinar would be from relevant government departments, research organizations, academia, associated industry and entrepreneurs, etc., specifically from South Asia region. It is my pleasure to inform you that Dr. Shoaib Ahmed, who is the Deputy Director of SARC Energy Center, has also joined us in this webinar. We are very thankful to you, sir, for taking out time from your busy schedule to attend this event. I'm also extremely grateful to our elite panel of presenters, including Mr. Dian Raina, Leela Nath Bhattarai, and Mahesh Acharya from the study team, and Ms. Wong from World Bank, and Mr. Saifullah and Mujib Ahmed from Elan Partners Private Limited for their enthusiasm and eager willingness to participate in our webinar. I shall introduce them in detail before the start of their relevant sessions. Dear participants, you will have the opportunity to ask questions to presenters by typing your questions or clicking to the raised hand option into the attendees panel of the main window of GoToWebinar software. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentations. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of each presentation. Additionally, you will also have a chance to share your views in the knowledge sharing session of the webinar. Now, I may like to request Dr. Shoaib Ahmed, Deputy Director, SARC Energy Center, to deliver his welcome speech.
Okay, my dear friends, participants, and presenters of the webinar. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning to you all. I, Dr. Shoaib, on behalf of SARC Energy Center, Islamabad, Pakistan, welcome you all to this webinar on review of previously carried out feasibility studies of Karnali Chissapani hydropower project in Nepal and looking into the options for its development as regional hydropower project in the South Asia. It's a great honor for me to speak to you on this occasion and over a big 10,800 megawatt power project, which is expected to play its role in the future development and prosperity of the people of SARC region. Dear participants, first of all, allow me to briefly speak about the SARC Energy Center and its responsibilities. The inception of the center as a regional institute and the technical arm of the SARC Organization on Energy Matters was approved in year 2006. Besides, the center was expected to translate the energy vision of SARC leadership into reality. Therefore, a governing board equally represented by the energy professionals from all 8 member states was constituted to guide and supervise the center. The day-to-day functional control of the center lies with the SARC Secretariat. The center started its operations in year 2008. During last 10 years, the center has emerged as a vibrant and effective SARC institute which has played its role in all regional level energy initiatives. Up till today, the center has carried out 110 plus interventions. The reports of these interventions are available on center's website free of cost to any. Moreover, hard prints of these reports can also be asked from the center, which we shall gladly provide. Today's webinar is on Karnali Chissapani hydro project in Nepal, which is a big power project with the generation capacity of 10,800 megawatt or more. We intend to hold few more on the various aspects of this and other important issues and technologies in near future. Dear participants, energy is the prime mover of almost all economic and technological advancements across the globe and consequently play a crucial role in the development of human life. Economic growth in South Asia can only be ensured by making energy accessible, affordable and reliable. A holistic view of energy situation in South Asia reveals that optimal utilization of sharing of indigenous resources of the region needs to be prioritized since it would ensure energy security for the people of this region and shall maximize the socio-economical benefits for them. Dear participants, huge gap in energy demand and supply in South Asia asks for new initiatives, aggressive policy decisions, and big investments in environmentally friendly power generation and infrastructure development projects. In addition, SARC member states are also to build upon their political will for regional cooperation in power generation and its cross-border trade. Implementation of Intergovernmental Framework Agreement on Energy can be a right step in this direction. Studies carried out in the past with financial assistance of Asian Development Bank and others have established the benefits of having regional power projects and power markets in SARC region. In step with these past efforts, SEC therefore proposes development of a large regional hydropower plant in South Asia, mainly focusing on the huge hydropower potential of Nepal and Bhutan. Karnali Chissapani project is not new. In the past, many feasibility studies have assessed it as a feasible and doable project. The latest study was carried out in the late 1980s. Last year, SARC Energy Center, under the guidance of Government of Nepal, has initiated the review of the past feasibility studies. The aim of this review is to define the terms of reference for hiring the consultants for updating the existing feasibility studies of Karnali Chissapani project with respect to the changing conditions. The outcomes of this study also include the way forward to undertake the project as a regional power project benefiting multiple member states. The objective of this webinar is to disseminate the findings and recommendations of the study, report among the stakeholders for adding value, increasing awareness, and making consensus on the various aspects highlighted in the study. In this webinar, we shall listen to the authors and the peer review of the study report. We also have presentation from the representative of the World Bank to have bank's view on its engagement with such projects. We also have many stakeholders as audience in this webinar. I am delighted to acknowledge the cooperation and support extended by all of them in this regard. This depicts their resolve and commitment to the cause of energy and make making it available to those who do not have it. In the end, I once again thank you all for joining this webinar and shall request you to feel free in suggesting us any improvement in the contents and outcomes of the study, and also in the working of SARC Energy Center itself. Today in the afternoon, we have a special session of knowledge sharing in this regard. I would also extend my special thanks to the presenters of the webinar, authors, and the peer reviewers of the study, representatives of the government of Nepal, and others who have contributed in the Karnali Chissapani project in the past. Lastly, I wish you all a very comfortable learning and a knowledge sharing in this webinar. May God bless people of South Asia and give us strength to serve them better. Thank you very much and best of luck. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shoaib Ahmed, Deputy Director, SARC Energy Center, for your opening remarks. Now I will move on to our agenda. The first presentation is going to be presented by Mr. D.N. Raina, and the presentation is basically on the need to revisit the Karnali Chissapani feasibility study. Mr. D.N. Raina, over the past 40 years, he has held senior positions in the government, public sector, and multinational organizations. He is the founder president of Intisol International and Energy Consultancy Organization. He is also a member of World Energy Council and an Indian member committee. Moreover, he is director South Asia Forum for Energy Efficiency, think tanks including South Asia Policy Analysis and South Asia Free Media Association. Moreover, he has been advising the ministries of foreign affairs of Germany, Japan, United Arab Emirates, Asian Development Bank, Japan Bank for International Cooperation, Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation, Energy Charter Secretariat, GTZ, and the SARC on energy issues across Central and South Asia. He has extensive experience in energy policy formulation and implementation, energy sector development, regional cooperation, and cross border energy trade and energy infrastructure development. He has authored and co authored over 24 publications, including Regional Energy Security for South Asia, SARC Regional Energy Trade Study, Power Trade in between Central Asian Republics and with South Asia, pre-feasibility studies for interconnecting power grids of India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and for India Sri Lanka trade project. Economic benefits, social analysis of power trade in SAGQ and power trade between India, Pakistan, and India, Sri Lanka, and impact of power sector reform in South Asia. Mr. D.N. Raina, we thank you for joining us, and I welcome you to this webinar. You may start your presentation session.
Are you able to listen to me, Mr. Bhaskar?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can listen to you.
You are able to listen to me?
Yes, sir. We can listen to you properly. You may proceed.
Right. Good morning, all people who are participating in this gigantic task of proposing a very mega project which will be next only to two gorges in China. Perhaps this will be the second biggest hydropower project in the world. If we take a look at the SARC region, we see that despite the fact that the major three countries of the region, I would say that the four countries, that would be India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, they got their independence in 1947. And we are already in 2017, we have already crossed. That makes over 70 years of our existence as independent nations. Though we have tried to progress in whatever manner we could, each one of us, not only these countries, but the other four countries in the region that covers Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, somehow the pace of development has not kept pace with the needs of life and the expectations of the people living in the region. Taking a look at the economic and social development of the region, we find that this is one of the poorest regions in the world when we take a look on the SAARC region. We do have some significant energy resources in the shape of coal in India, hydropower in all the countries lying on the foothills or across the Himalayan region. Then all of us have a very large potential for solar energy development. Solar, of course, being relatively new to the energy basket, it has been quite expensive to develop solar power projects. But coal and hydro, we have been depending and developing these two resources to a large extent over the period since we got independence. The environmental concerns about the coal development and the adverse impacts of coal burning have just decelerated the application of coal or use of coal for development of energy from the coal-based power stations. Hydro is one thing that we should have and we must immediately develop to the largest extent possible. What we also see that oil import dependence of the SAARC countries is as high as up to 100%. At the same time, we have a 3 lakh megawatt hydropower potential in the region, which is 300,000 megawatt. And if we compare the total installed capacity, the prevailing total installed capacity of the region, it is around 360,000 megawatts, 3.6 gigawatts versus the potential of 3 gigawatts. So if we had developed the hydropower potential that is available in the region, we could have definitely met at least 60 to 70% of the prevailing energy needs of the region. As against that, in my presentation, when I will be presenting chapter 4, I will just give you the country-wise breakup about how much is the country-wise potential in all the 8 countries, how much has been harnessed, and what is the energy generation from that capacity. The first initiative I was involved in the mapping of hydropower resources. This was a publication done by under the SARI Energy Project, South Asia Regional Initiative on Energy Cooperation and Development. Way back in 2001, I had just suggested to my team that let's take a look on the hydropower resources across South Asia and what is the potential and possibilities of developing and harnessing it for the generation of electricity. That was done in 2001, but nothing much moved thereafter on that front. Then in the the first decade of the present century, the important study that was done under the aegis and with the assistance of the Asian Development Bank by the SAARC and SAARC Energy Center was the SAARC Regional Energy Trade Study. And in between these two dates, there was another study which was a regional energy security for South Asia, of which I happened to be the team leader, and I had the experts from all the SAARC countries representing there, and we had also the country reviewers for each of the country, so that an authentic document would be published. So these were the 3 major things where the need for harnessing the indigenous resources of the SAARC countries was planned and was recommended and was highly recommended, but nothing much has happened till date. One of the major recommendations of the SAARC Regional Energy Trade Study, which was unanimously adopted at the SAARC level as well, was the SAARC Regional Energy Trade Study. Inter alia, it suggested the creation of regional and sub-regional energy projects from coal, from gas, from hydro, from solar, from whichever resources were available within the region. However, the things have not moved at the pace they should have. Karnali is one of the projects which was initially conceived of in early 60s, and the first feasibility study was done by the Japanese consultants under the Japanese aid in 1996. and then subsequently Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai will be just giving you the phase-wise and year-wise, which were the subsequent studies undertaken till date. I believe Snowy Mountains did another study, then some other organizations did some other studies. The NOR consultants did another study. The last study done was the one which was completed in 1990. December 1990, the final report was submitted. It was done under the aegis of the Himalaya Power Consortium, which had members from various international leading hydropower consulting companies. In 1990, when the feasibility study was started in 1986, it took 4 years to complete. And that time, the project proponents for this project were to be India and Nepal. It was to be developed as a bilateral project between the two countries, with hydropower as one of the major benefits, and the other component was the irrigation component, irrigation and flood control, which both of which are quite relevant even today. Now, with the SARC's decision to just develop the Karnali Chissapani as a regional project, the stakeholding pattern in the project will change. As of now, I am not very certain and I am not very enlightened about the aspect. Maybe Mr. Shoaib may be very pertinent and right person to answer that question subsequently, is whether all the 8 countries will be participating or only if some of the countries will be participating. As per the SARC Regional Energy Trade Study, the recommendation was made that these projects which can be developed in one of the countries, and there are more than two participants in a project, that is 3 or more, would be a sub-regional project, and if all the countries are participants, that would be a fully regional project. Whichever way it is going to be developed, either as a sub-regional project or a regional project, it will have a stakeholding of various countries, which will make the stakeholding pattern change significantly than what was envisaged in 1986 to 1990. That is one important aspect that we need to keep in mind when we are discussing about this project. The second aspect is about since the past study was done 28 years back, much water has flown down Karnali River since then. The technology to implement the project has changed significantly. The environmental standards that were to be followed in 1986 or 1990, they have undergone a sea change with the global warming and other important aspects that are taking place within the countries, within the region, and globally. Rehabilitation and resettlement might not have been a very big task that time, because the population was much lesser in those regions where the project site is and where the project is to be developed. It has undergone a sea change, and the rehabilitation settlement packages to be offered to the hostages of the dam or people who have to be rehabilitated as a result of implementation of this project have to be significantly higher than what they were at the time 1990 or 91. Due to the environmental changes and global warming, the water flows might have undergone a significant change. The water flow levels, the volumes, and the speed, and every damn thing that was prevalent and pertinent in 1990 or 1988 when the hydrology was done, it must have undergone a sea change. The other major important aspect and factor is the upgradation of the plant, equipment, tools, jigs, whatever is required to be just for implementing the project. There has been a sea change in those things. The capacity of the plants, the equipment to be used, the tools and jigs to be used. It is much easier and more mechanical now than it would have been that time. And we have new technologies available today to assess the seismology, the geology, and several other technical parameters can be checked with much more ease, and much more accuracy than it could have been done in 1990s. Since the project was a bilateral project conceived at the time in 1986-1990, I don't know what might have been the level of interest of the development financial institutions and other financial private equity markets or capital markets across the globe. When today, if we conceive it as a regional or a sub-regional project, the interest of DFIs and the financiers will be totally different than what it would have been had it been a bilateral or a one country owned project. Seeing the gap in energy demand between 1989 or 90 and today, the energy demand has increased many fold in all the countries. I believe in 1990 the total capacity of the South Asia region, if my memory doesn't fail me, it was less than 80,000 megawatts, while as it is 360,000 megawatts today. That is a 4-5 fold increase over that period. Energy prices have increased significantly. Around 90s, we used to pay 50 paisa or 1 rupee for power. Today it is 4 rupees, 6 rupees, 8 rupees, 10 rupees, 15 rupees in different countries. And due to the latest technology and technological development, it is possible that the installed capacity that was envisaged at that time to be 1800 megawatts might be, it could go higher. I don't know how much it can be now. So to assess all these things, the changes that have taken place, the socio-economic environment that has changed, the technology and technological environment that has changed, it is essential to revisit the feasibility study that was done in 1990 and see what are the changes, how best we can harness this resource, and if we are able to lay a foundation stone for one of the biggest hydropower projects in the region that may lead to several other projects, maybe on the solar side or some other side as well. And if I take a look on the South Asia region as a whole, there is a lot of potential and possibility of not building cooperation, energy cooperation within South Asia only, but to extend our cooperation to the Central Asia on the west and East Asia on the eastern periphery of South Asia. And if we are able to manage that and we have a SARC regional grid, which permits and allows free flow of energy from east to west of South Asia, I can assure you that developing solar and hydro will reduce our dependence on oil imports, gas imports, and other energy imports significantly, thereby saving our own resources within each of the countries and also the region as a whole. With those remarks, I will close my this presentation. I will just give it back to Mr. Bhaskar Pradhan, who is going to just give it to Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai, who will be presenting chapters 1, 2, and 3 of this feasibility study that we have undertaken. Then chapter 4, I will be presenting myself. Chapter 5 and 6 will be presented by our another author, Mr. Mahesh Acharya. Then chapter 7, the way forward, will be presented by me. With that, we will conclude our presentation. Question and answers we will be answering at the end of our session. Mr. Pradhan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durganath Raina, for giving a detailed overview of why Karnali Chissapani feasibility study should be revisited. We now move on to our next presenter, Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai, who is going to present Karnali Chissapani hydropower project overview. Mr. Bhattarai has 34 years of professional experience encompassing a wide range of project activities, including planning, core engineering design, and construction supervision of hydropower projects. He has experience of leading teams in the planning, design, and implementation of a number of hydropower projects under different financing modalities, including multilateral funding agencies. He has extensive experience of working with the government organizations and agencies as well as public companies. Currently, he is working as an independent consultant advising government agencies, national and international consulting firms in Nepal on hydropower planning, design, and development. He holds degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in water resources engineering. So Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai, thank you very much for joining us. I hope that you can hear me properly. You may go on to proceed with your presentation. Excuse me, Mr. Bhattarai, we can't hear you properly.
Yes, I am hearing you very properly. Thank you very much. Can you very much? Can you see my screen?
Yes, Mr. Bhattarai, we can hear you properly and we can see your screen. Thank you very much
Okay.
for joining us. You may proceed now.
So I have shared my screen. So you might be observing my screen. So good morning, participants of this webinar on dissemination webinar on Karnali Chissapani multi-purpose project, which capacity is 10,800 megawatt. This is large-scale multi-purpose development. Its installed capacity is 10,800 megawatt, and it can generate 20,842 gigawatt hour energy annually. The project can irrigate about 200,000 hectare of land in Nepal and 3.2 million hectare land in India. The other benefits are flood control and navigations. So that's why this project has been conceptualized as multi-purpose project. This is also one of the largest water resources development on the Indian subcontinent with dam height of 270 meter. The total storage volume is 28.2 billion cubic meter, of which 16.2 billion cubic meter is the live storage. The project, it has a regulating facilities. It can provide, which is provided immediately downstream to ensure uniform downstream flow. This facility includes a low embankment dam of reservoir capacity of about 100 million cubic meter live storage, and it can generate about 84 megawatt power. The dam site is located at the narrowest part of the gorge. It is an embankment dam. The project is located in western part of Nepal. It is 600 kilometers from Kathmandu and about 500 kilometers from Delhi in Karnali Gorge, upstream of Tarai part of Ganges Plain. So this shows the Karnali project, location of Karnali project in the western part of Nepal on Karnali River. It can be shown in the Ganges Basin, the project on the Karnali River, just after Karnali Bend, very attractive bend. And this is Karnali. After the Karnali Bend, the project Karnali multipurpose project is located very close to the Indo-Nepal border. This is Indo-Nepal border. So this is very attractive gorge. Very attractive gorge. The length of this gorge is 4 kilometer, and the dam is located almost at the middle of the gorge. So this is the mouth of the gorge at the downstream, and beyond this, at the upstream of this, the shape of the valley is fan-shaped valley, which can store very huge amount of water, about 28.2 billion cubic meter of water can be stored in this fan-shaped valley upstream of this. So the features of the project, the main dam. The main dam is 270-meter high from the lowest foundation level, and peak discharge are reduced to about one-third of the peak inflow for both the spillway and the diversion facilities. The spillway is ungated chute spillway capable of discharging a maximum flood discharge of 19,200 cumex. This is about one-third of PMF. It is 860 meter long. At the end of this chute spillway, a flip bucket is provided. Ultimately, it disposes water into the plunge pool. So This is large storage reservoir with live storage of 16.2 kilometer square, about 16.2 billion cubic meter. It is equal to about 37% of the average annual flow. So it can create about 4 times of dry season flow. So it can due to the regulations, the dry season flow could be about 4 times of the natural flow. The river Karnali will be diverted during construction through two 15-meter diameter diversion tunnels. Each of them are 2,400 meters long. So this is the general layout of the project. This is the dam across the Karnali river. It is 270 meters high. It is embankment dam. On the left bank, there is provision of intake and power tunnels, and underground powerhouses are located on the left bank of the river, and spillway is provided on the right bank. Spillway is provided on the right bank, and diversion tunnel is also provided on the right bank. So there is a provision of regulating dam. This is regulating dam. The length of regulating dam is about 8 kilometers, and it has provision of two irrigation outlets, one at the eastern part and other at the western part, east bank and west bank of the river. So the power facilities are located on the left bank of the dam site. The power facility incorporates 18 generating units, is 600 megawatt, producing 20,842 million kilowatt hour per year. These generating units are in-housed in an underground cavern of size 705 meter length, 27.7 meter width, and 50 meter height, and include 6 power tunnels, 15-meter diameter each. The power tunnel convey water into 18 steel line penstocks of 7.2 meter diameter through 6 vertical shafts of 14-meter diameter. The transformers and valves are also in-housed in a separate underground caverns about 700 meter long. So these are the power facilities shown here: the intake structure, power tunnels, and underground powerhouse and tail race. There is the provision of regulating dam. The regulating dam with maximum height of 24 meters is located about 8 kilometers downstream of the main dam. The regulating dam is provided to provide uniform daily flows downstream to ensure full irrigation benefits both in Nepal and India, and to maintain the natural riverine environment. For the power evacuation of power from the main power plant to the Indian system will be achieved through 5 765 kV transmission line, while the power from re-regulating powerhouse would be transmitted to Indian system by 1 220 kV line. This is the concept developed in 1989. So this is the general features. So socio-economic environmental issues. The study concluded that the project will cause substantial socio-economic and environmental impacts, which require further investigations and studies for the effective mitigations. The project required resettlement of about 60,000 people that time. So this time it has been increased tremendously. It was planned to resettle them primarily into currently the undeveloped areas within the Karnali irrigation command area. The environmental impact includes unavoidable encroachment into the existing Royal Bhartiya Wildlife Reserve. This is adjacent to the reservoir area, adjacent to the dam. This is located vicinity of the main dam and the re-regulating facilities, and potential adverse impacts on the Gangetic dolphin and gharial crocodile. So for the project implementation, it was envisaged to implement the project in 17 years. The capital cost of project was estimated at 4.89 billion US dollar at 1998 price level. The economic evaluation has shown that the benefit cost ratio was 2.46, a very attractive project. These are the conclusion drawn in the feasibility study 1989. Feasibility study of 1990 concludes that the project configuration defined is technically feasible and economically viable and very attractive. However, the study is unable to confirm environmental feasibility of the project, mainly because of deficiencies in baseline data and field inventories. So, technical feasibility, as far as technical feasibility is concerned, a multi-purpose water resources project on the Karnali River at Chissapani is technically feasible. It includes 270-meter high gravel field embankment dam and underground powerhouse on the left bank, transmission line, high capacity transmission line, 765 kV. However, more needs to be done on the geological and hydraulic conditions in the fan area affecting design and cost of the re-regulating facility. So, during the feasibility study, the recommendation made by the Himalayan Power Consultant is more need to be done on the geological and hydraulic condition in the fan area at the downstream of the dam. The study also concludes that the upstream dam site, approximately in the middle of gauge, is superior due to the more favorable topography and a better geological condition and overall economy. Because the study considered two dam sites, and upper dam site was found to be superior than the lower dam site. So as far as economic viability is concerned, the Chissapani project is economically viable and very attractive. So resulting net economic benefit and a BC ratio was estimated at US dollar 9,972 and 2.46 respectively. As far as socio-economic feasibility is concerned, the study was not able to confirm environmental feasibility of the project through the study program because of deficiencies in the baseline data and field inventories. Additional feasibility studies are required to define an adequate program of mitigation, compensation, enhancement, and management measures. Furthermore, the consultant concluded that the time of completion of the study, early 1990, was a good time to proceed with the project from the view of the above technical economic aspect covered in the study. So, thank you very much for attending, for listening me. This is an overview of the project. So, I am proceeding to the review of the project. I am going to make the presentation on the review of the project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai, for your presentation. Now we move on to the review of feasibility study of Himalayan Power Consultants of December 1989 by Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai. Mr. Leelanath, you may continue your presentation from here onwards. For our attendees of this webinar, you may ask your questions by typing in the chat pane. We will collect your questions and then we will present those questions to the presenters at the end of this session during the Q&A session. So, Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai, you may proceed with the next part of your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I am sharing my screen. Can you see this, please?
Yes, we are looking at your screen.
Okay. Yes. So you can see my screen.
Yes. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I am proceeding for the review of the existing feasibility study 1989. of the Karnali Chissapani multi-purpose project. Actually, this is Karnali Chissapani multi-purpose project, not only hydropower. Hydropower is one of the benefit. So the content of the presentation would be documents reviewed. So I list what documents we have reviewed by our study team, and I also mention the site investigations. The site investigations carried out by the different studies in the past in terms of topography, in terms of geology, geotechnical, hydrology, hydrological investigations, and also I'll put something about the Karnali Gorge, how the dam type is selected at the Karnali Gorge during the study. And also I'll discuss something about project optimization carried out in the time, reservoir simulation study, and then I'll enter into project general arrangement. I'll discuss about project benefits in terms of power benefit, in terms of irrigation benefit, in terms of flood control benefit and navigation benefit, and I'll discuss about the power facilities, and I'll enter into the environmental social issues, and at the end project cost, economic and financial analysis, and at the end I'll put some of our observations, the observations made by the study team. Okay, these are the documents reviewed. The main focus of this review were from the following documents. The documents: Karnali Chissapani multiple project feasibility study main report, December 1989, and also we have reviewed the executive summary, January 1990, and there are annexes. So the annexes cover geology and site investigation. Other annex: hydrology, power system studies, power facilities. So there are different annexes covering different aspects of study. So in the past, the first study was conducted in 1966 by Nippon Koi. The capacity of the project was figured out to be 1800 megawatt. So after that, next study was done in 1968. The study was done by Snowy Mountains Hydroelectric Authority, Australia. Its capacity was 3600 megawatt. Then the government of Nepal carried out other studies from Norconsult and Electrowatt in 1976. Its capacity was 3600 megawatt. Actually, none of these studies, neither Nippon Koi study nor Snowy Mountain study nor Consult study, none of the earlier studies considered multi-purpose aspects of the development. And none of the studies considered a development at Chissapani utilizing the full resource potential of this site. So there were some limitations of the earlier study. So there was continuous interest from the government of Nepal and government of India in Chissapani projects. So steps were taken during 1970s and 1980s to proceed with the development of the project. A bi-national policy level committee named Committee on Karnali was formed in 1978. And this includes the high officials from government of Nepal and government of India. Then subsequently a technical level committee was also formed in 1983. The name of this technical level committee was named as Karnali Coordinating Committee, a technical team. As a result, a final feasibility study was deemed necessary, and government of Nepal decided to carry out a comprehensive study to meet all the requirements of major multipurpose development consistent with the norms of international lending institutions. Accordingly, a feasibility study was carried out by HPC in 1989. The study was started from 1986 and ultimately completed 1989. And the HPC is Himalayan Power Consultant. It was a consortium of mainly North American consulting firms comprising Akers, Canada, Ibasco, USA, Savinian, Canada, and SNC, Canada. These all established that the project is technically feasible and financially viable. So Nippon Koi study was done in 1966. They proposed concrete gravity dam of height 200 meter. At the upstream side, there were two sites. From the very beginning, at the Karnali Gorge, two sites were considered. One was at the middle of the gorge, and other was at the almost at the end of the gorge, near at the upstream of the mouth of the gorge. So they recommend, the Nippon Koi study recommend 200-meter high dam at the upstream site. Its estimate the generating capacity of 1800 megawatt. A surface powerhouse at the base of the dam was proposed. Then next study was made by Snowy Mountains Hydropower Authority 1968. They reviewed the study conducted by Nippon Koi. But the review study questioned the feasibility study of the project configuration and its arrangement, and carried out alternative study of this arrangement with an embankment dam of similar height at the downstream site. So they choose, Snowy Mountains choose the lower downstream site, almost at the mouth of the gorge. And they recommend the alternative development of peaking project with higher capacity. The capacity was 3,600 megawatt. Then again, next study was done in 1977 by Norconsult and Electrowatt. This study recommended an embankment dam at the downstream site. So capacity was 3,600 megawatt. So with this, it was required to carry out a comprehensive study, and next comprehensive study was carried out by Himalayan Power Consultant in 1989. The scope of this study covers comprehensive field investigations. It includes topographical mapping, geological investigations, seismicity and tectonic measurements, and sedimentation and hydrologic data collection. Extensive investigation was made on the two alternative dam sites. I already mentioned the upper dam site and lower dam site in the Karnali Gorge, leading to the selection of the more upstream dam. The scope of the study also covered project design, cost estimates, benefits evaluation to determine the optimum scale development. A construction plan for the entire project was prepared in this study, including special attention to diversion considerations, a dam construction, transportation of major equipment through India and Nepal, access roads and general construction logistics. All was studied in this. The access condition from Kolkata port to the project site was studied by different sub-consultants and subcontractors. A detailed contractor type cost estimate was made in this study. Economic benefits of hydropower production, irrigation benefits, flood control, and navigation was examined. Socio-economic and resettlement studies and environmental assessment of the project was carried out. So, this study, the feasibility study by SPC 1989, was the general guidance was provided by Karnali Coordinating Committee, a technical committee formed by the technical officials from the government of Nepal and the government of India. They provided general advice and a direction for the study. Overseas Bechtel Incorporated, Canada, was provided advisory services to the government of Nepal. They were assigned the job of advisory consultant. They supervise the support the government of Nepal to carry out the study and advise to the government of Nepal on the technical matters. So site investigation, a comprehensive program was launched for the field investigation. The assessment is found to be based on interpretation of extensive data sets from site investigations. The site investigation during the study period of HPC, during the period of 1986-1989, and also the study examined all the previous investigations carried out under previous studies. They consider the investigations data from 1966 and 1977. Topography mapping was done. Aerial topography, ground control survey, and topography mapping were carried out in 1986 and 1987 by Kenting Earth Sciences Limited under the subcontract to SBC. It covered big areas, about 12.5 kilometers square the dam site, 60 kilometers square of the reservoir area, 3,901 kilometers square of western Tarai. So, what we can observe is this information in general is sufficient given the nature of the project site. However, it is essential to update the topography maps to take into account the recent infrastructure development in the area using the latest technology such as LiDAR mapping technology. So we intend to update the feasibility study of 1989 in the regional market level. To update it, it is essential to update the topography maps also. So the study team has realized and recommended to use the latest technology such as LiDAR mapping. So it is fast and accurate also, okay, dependable also. So as far as geological and geotechnical investigations is concerned, in that time, the consultant carried out investigation in two stages. They divided into stage A and stage B. Stage A was mainly focused on the selection of dam because they were given the job of dam site selection, because there was some study recommend upper dam site, other study recommend lower dam site. So there was confusion. So distinctly it was written to them. The scope was clearly defined to the SPC to select the dam site based on the geological investigation and geotechnical investigation. So stage A was concerned for the selection of dam, and stage B were concentrated at the selected upstream of the dam site. Once from the stage A, upstream dam site was selected, in stage B, the geological and geotechnical investigation was concentrated at the upstream dam site. And at the stage B investigation, next important area of investigation was re-regulating facility and also the borough areas to provide data for feasibility design. Furthermore, the investigation carried out for the underground works comprised 5 elements: geological mapping, geophysical survey, core drilling, editing, and rock testing. The investigation includes about 3,200 meters of core drilling and almost 700 meters of drifting or exploratory edits, test edits, 700 meter test edit, and more than 3 kilometers core drilling. Points of particular interest are angle core drilling under the river and deep holes and edits into the area of the underground powerhouse complex. So what we can observe from this is the investigations are generally comprehensive except investigation on geological and hydrological conditions in fan area. Even the study recommends to carry out further investigation in geological and hydrological condition of fan area. So investigations were performed all the areas very comprehensively in detail, but additional investigation is required for the fan area at the downstream, at the re-evaluating facilities area also. Investigation on geological and hydraulic conditions in the fan area affecting designs and the cost of the re-evaluating facility needs to be done. Besides, further geological, geotechnical investigation might be necessary for detailed engineering design of the project. Such additional investment may also include in-situ test. The consultant, in-situ test, the consultant to be hired for the updating of the feasibility study will determine the scope of additional investigations and carry out the investigation subject to the approval of the employer. So what we think is the geological investigation was very comprehensive, but further investigation may be required with for the use of latest technology and all these things. So the consultant to be hired for the feasibility study, updated feasibility study, needs to define the scope of works for this. So that is our understanding of the study team. Okay, to carry out the additional investigation on the recommendation of the potential consultant, subject to the approval by the employer. Okay. So this is all about the geological geotechnical investigation. So it should be included. It should be included in the especially fan concentrate to the fan area, and also maybe some rock mechanical test may be required. Some hydrofracturing type of test may be required. Okay, that is very important to uh, finalize all design aspects of underground uh, structures. So that may be required. So that is included in the TOR of the consultant. It is well defined in our TOR of the consultant in the task number 2, the field investigation study. It is clearly written in the TOR of the potential consultant. Now next, investigate the hydrology and sedimentation. Okay, that time also they have carried out very good hydrological and sediment studies and investigations. The one of the station number 280, located immediately downstream of the dam site, was used for flow measurement between July and September 1987. A shore-based system from the existing wire rope cableway was used for this purpose. For the sedimentation also, a channel hydraulic characteristics and bed material size were determined in April and September 1987 during the study period along an 8-kilometer stretch of the Karnali River upstream of the dam site and along the river Vary. And fortunately, I was involved in the study of this project just after my undergraduate degree. I was involved in this project as a design engineer. So 3 cross sections were surveyed on the Karnali River upstream of the dam site and 4 on the river Vary. Water survey profiles were measured along both reaches. A total of 12 bed material samples were taken and their gradation determined. A total of 403 suspended sediment samples were taken and were analyzed. According to our study, the review team, we found this that time it was good to carry out hydrological investigation studies well considered. But it was done 28 years back. Okay. So during the last 28 years, since the time of HPC, there are additional hydrological data available. So it has to be refined. We have additional data, 28 years additional data, it has to be refined. Also, there has been significant changes in the land use pattern in the river catchment. So this will have impact on the sediments concentration in the river. The reservoir sedimentation is very important. So that time of study will have to update it, further updated with the study of catchment characteristics and all these things. So supplementary data collection on hydrology and sedimentation during the study project period is required to be carried out to refine them. It is essential to review the hydrological data and also it is also we recommend to take sample measurements of sediments in the river during the study period, because some time will be given to the consultant. So during that study period also consultant can take some samples, can verify that, can make some measurement. So this is clearly written in the TOR of the consultant for the updated feasibility study. It is well written in the task number 2. the field investigation and studies. Now, next, environmental social surveys. The baseline information on the variety of resources in the reservoir and downstream areas within Nepal was collected by survey team traveling on foot and by boat. Well done that time, because it was 1989. So that time the environment requirement was different from today's. So whatever they have done, it has to be reviewed and it has to be updated. And they also, during that time, several helicopter and fixed wing reconnaissance flights were made over the reservoir area along the lower Karnali to gain an overall impression of the geomorphology and extent and the condition of forest and agricultural resources. So nicely it was covered to get the database, to create the database, baseline data. Besides, extensive socio-economic study was made with a total of more than 7,000 interviews to obtain database for socio-economic studies and resettlement planning of the population living in the impact areas. So, the study team, our observation is the environmental survey had to be updated to reflect the current information on the condition of the forest and agricultural resources to conduct full-fledged EIA, CIA, SIA, RAP, Rehabilitation Action Plan, Resettlement Action Plan. Sorry, this is Resettlement Action Plan, RAP. RAP. So it is required. The social economic surveys, it requires census and sampling. Social economic surveys, census survey, preferably it should be census survey, needs to be redone as the population in the project has increased significantly in the past 28 years. Furthermore, the socio-economic conditions of people have undergone significant transformation in that period, as people are moving away from the subsistence farming to other trade, foreign employment, and so on. So there is a lot of changes in socio-economic pattern of area. So it has to be revisited. So this is established in the TOR also, the requirement, requirement written in all the full-fledged EIA, SIA, and all these things, it is defined. So our study team has defined this requirement in the TOR. Now, our observation on geology and construction material, HPC has made conservative assumptions in the design of major structure and has recommended carrying out detailed geological investigation at these three locations during detailed design stage of the project. It is recommended that as part of updating feasibility study, the consultant would review the geology of the reservoir, dam site, and rerate facilities and update as necessary, and identify the additional geological and geotechnical investigation to be carried out and carry out further investigation. Okay. And also for the construction material also, HPC study concludes that that material required for the Chissapani project is about 60 million cubic meter construction materials. That is the requirement they have estimated, of which 9 million cubic meter impervious materials, 39 million cubic meter shell fill, 6 million cubic meter filters, 4 million cubic meter aggregates, and 1.5 million cubic meter riprap. It should be obtained from the terrace deposits extending downstream along the banks of the alluvial fan. That is huge alluvial fan, but it has to be well investigations. The information on construction material, including the core fill materials, need to be updated during the feasibility study. That's why it is well written, well requirement is written in the TOR. Again, as far as hydrology is concerned, this is hydrology in the hydrological analysis. The existing 36 meteorological stations located in the Karnali basins and the 21 stations from the adjacent basins form the basis of data network that was used for hydrometric studies during the time in 1989. There are 5 principal gauging stations located within the Karnali basins, which are operated by Department of Hydrology and Meteorology. A flow gauge was set up near the mouth of the gorge at the Chissapani site in 1961, and the flow records are available since then. HPC used 25 years of flow data from 1962 to 1986 and has opined that the 25-year flow sequence is quite adequate for feasibility study purpose. Okay, the average long-term flow is estimated at 1389 cumex. There is a marked seasonal variation in flows with distinct seasonal variation. Average monthly flow range from 309 meter cube per second in February up to 4359 meter cube per second in August. The peak flood recorded was about 20,000 meter cube per second in 1983. The PMF used for the design of this flow has peak inflow of 60,000 cumex. So our observation is the updated feasibility study requires to review the hydrology, update them, incorporating the additional flow information available in the intervening periods. Now, as far as sedimentation is concerned, in the sedimentation also, in the analysis part, 403 samples were collected. The in the average 6 hours, there it is from collected from 318 occasions in every 6 hours from July through September 1987. The Chissapani sediment measured load over the 3 months was estimated at 84 million tons. But 1987 was a low flow and a low flood year for Karnali River, because that time, because the HPC measured in 1987, but it was a low flow and low flood year for the Karnali River. Thereby required some adjustment. HPC estimated 260 million tons as the annual average applying sediment rating curve derived from 1987 data, and consider some sediments load measured for other basins in the subcontinent. They have considered other subcontinent also. But our observation in this is the updated feasibility study requires review the hydrology, update them incorporating additional information from the field, investigation, measurements to assess the current status of the sediment flow in the river induced by the changed land use pattern in the river catchment. Further, as suggested by SPC also suggested, the updated feasibility study will also require to carry out an assessment on the potential for river channel degradation downstream of Chissapani, especially at the downstream of Girzapur barrage, quantify the likely impact and identify mitigation measure. They have studied, but what they have done, for the downstream degradation part, they have studied up to Indo-Nepal border, mainly focused on the Indo-Nepal border, and beyond that they have not considered. And they have also recommended in 1989 study also they have recommended the end assessment on the potential of river channel degradation downstream of the Chissapani barrage, especially Girijapur barrage, are below from the Indo-Nepal border. So it is required to be done for quantifying the likely impact and identify mitigation measures. Now, next important is the Karnali Gorge. The Karnali Gorge is 4 kilometers long. At this gorge, two dam sites were identified since 50 years, 50 or even 50, 60 years back. So it was required to concentrate investigation in both the dam sites. So HPC did that. At the stage A investigation, they concentrate on the selection of dam site. Investigation was concentrated on the selection of a dam site. So they carried out investigation at the upstream dam site and downstream dam site. The upstream dam site is situated 2 kilometers upstream of the mouth of the gorge. It is the narrowest and deepest section, providing specific site advantage. Both the embankment type and the concrete dam are considered at this site, at the upstream dam site. At the downstream dam site, it is relatively wide gorge. It is close to the existing access facilities. It is close to the Chissapani barrage bridge area, access facilities, close to the east-west highway of Nepal, close to the access facilities, and the sources of construction materials. It is close to the sources of construction materials, the lower dam site, because the huge fan area is very close to the lower dam site. The riverbed level is about 2 meters lower, giving a small increase in head at the same reservoir level. But in this lower dam site, only embankment dam was considered. So based on the dam type selection was made based on the investigation on these two sites, The HPC study considered 5 different aspects of comparing dam type selections, alternatives at both the dam sites. They have considered cost comparison, they have considered technical acceptability, they have considered impact of possible optimization changes to reservoir levels and install capacity, and comparison was made with previous studies and concluded that the embankment dam at the upstream dam site was confidently selected in considering to this analysis. So now the dam site is final. The additional study need not to consider because it is well done investigation, but it is better to review that, but not to do other additional investigations. That is our observations. The consultants to be hired for operating feasibility study would review the location of the dam and the dam type and make recommendation on the location and dam type based on the data, available data done by the HPC study in 1989. Now, next is project optimization. The objective of the optimization study was to determine the optimum size of the project, taking into account all the multi-purpose benefits and the long-term potential for the development in the Karnali River Basin. Optimization was carried out comprising cost and benefits for the project, primarily as economic analysis expressed as a net benefit and benefit cost ratio. The project was optimized considering only power benefits in consideration to uncertainty in the value of additional benefit due to increased river. Now, here we have to concentrate. The additional study had to concentrate this is the limitations of this study. This is the limitation of the study. Optimization was done primarily. The project was optimized considering only power benefits. They have not considered multi-purpose benefits. They have added later on, but optimization has not considered this. This is the main drawback of this study. The project optimization was optimized for the only power benefits, and they have mentioned they think that it is uncertain to value additional irrigation benefit due to the increased reservoir storage. So the reservoir storage, the dry season flow has increased 4 times, but they are not certain of additional irrigation benefits. This is the main limitations of this study. So the further study, the study team, we have found this as limitations of the study and well recommended in the TOR to carry out all sort of the project should be considered a multi-purpose project. In the name, even in the name also, we should put the multi-purpose project, not the Karnali Chissapani hydropower project. This is the Karnali Chissapani multi-purpose project. We have to treat this as a multi-purpose project. Not only treat this as, we have to, the fact is multi-purpose nature of this project. We have to use this for the benefit of the nations, all the nations. So, especially Nepal, India, Bangladesh, the benefit of flood control and irrigation benefit. Okay. However, the study confirmed that almost the entire reservoir size is considered is capable of providing the maximum identified downstream irrigation flow benefits. They have done so. The limitation is they did optimization based on the power benefit, but what they have done is with the power benefits and all these things, they have mentioned that it's capable of providing maximum identified downstream. So they have identified irrigation benefits at the downstream, about 3.2 million in India and about 200,000 hectare in Nepal. About 3.4 million hectare land will be irrigated in Nepal and India. So this huge irrigation benefit, for the huge irrigation, it is the optimized. This is the limitation of the study. So the further study, the updated study has to concentrate on this. This is very, very important. Now, next point is the range of alternatives considered in the project optimizations. They have considered range from 370 meter MASL to 430 meter MASL. They have taken all the possible alternatives of full supply level. And drawdown vary from 40 meter to 70 meter. Based on the geology of that area, it is also well done. The installed capacity corresponding to 20% to 30% of capacity factor. So this is the consideration they have made in the optimization study. HPC study consider the range of project capacity factors from 20% to 30% as suggested by the Indian as suggested by the Indian delegation to the Karnali Coordination Committee. Actually, as far as project capacity factor is considered, the SPC has not made much study on this. They have considered the suggestions by the Karnali Coordinating Committee. Actually, they should have worked out something, but the study fails to work out this. This is other limitation also about the project capacity factors. Okay, they were taken as granted. Okay, it was given by Karnali Coordinating Committee, so it is lacking there. Huh? Yes, uh-huh. It's okay. Sorry for the interruption. Okay. Okay. Okay, project optimization. This slide is also continuing for project optimization. After the initial optimization as an independent hydropower project for power export to India, the HPC study also evaluates the impact of upstream Karnali hydropower project development
Excuse
with
me,
this project.
Mr. Leelanath, as the you are over 10 minutes above your time, so if you could please wrap it up in the next 5 minutes, so we could then move
Okay,
on to
okay,
Mr. Raina for his presentation.
okay. So for the optimization, WFP requires to carry out a project optimization study in relation to multiple benefits, the South Asian power market, financial institutional concern from the regional perspective. This is very important for the optimization. As far as simulation is concerned, in the simulation also, it is proposed that as part of the feasibility study, the consultant shall carry out the system simulation in light of the upstream development in the Karnali River Basin. There are many development in the Karnali River Basin and current general practice also. The other upstream storage type hydro project also should be considered for the project reservoir simulation study. And for the benefit, as it is already presented, it is taken as power benefit project, hydropower project, but this is a multi-purpose project. It should be treated as a real in the true multi-purpose project, assessing the irrigation benefits and power benefits, flood control benefits. As far as irrigation benefit is concerned, as the pertinent data information irrigation potential was not available from the relevant office sources, the benefit were evaluated both with and without the Chissapani project. The benefit estimation was made the available information from relevant reports on water and land use concept throughout the Ghagra and Ganga plain. So they could not receive the official data. So it is the limitation of the study. Flood control benefit also has some limitations. It is essential to estimate the power benefits, irrigation benefits, flood control benefits using updated information from the official source of Government of India, Government of Nepal, and also Bangladesh government also. So this is general arrangement of project. It is already presented in the overview of the project. So facilities and all these things, it is presented already. Power equation also, environmental resources is also presented. Project cost, it is also presented. The total cost is 4.89 billion US dollar in 1988 price level. The consultant to be hired for updating the feasibility study shall review the project cost to reflect the current cost of materials, labor and equipment, and the cost of land acquisition and rehabilitation of the project affected people. So economic and financial analysis also, it is required uh, to assess the benefits. There are some observations. The focus of the 1989 SPC study was to optimize the project primarily for power generation, with irrigation, flood control, and irrigation benefits taken as being secondary. The data availability issue had hindered the SPC to undertake a comprehensive study to optimize the project to capture the other benefits. particular irrigation and flood control in India and Bangladesh. The updated feasibility study requires to optimize the project as a true multiple project, taking all the benefits. Next, the updated feasibility study will require to update the optimization of project considering the planned committed upstream development in the Karnali River basin, such as there is a project, Upper Karnali project 900 megawatt, Phuket Karnali project 540 megawatt, West Sethi project 750 megawatt, Nalsinghat project in the Nalsinghat River on the tributary of this river 300 megawatt and other IR projects. So for this, it is required to update this. This optimization should consider all this. The updated feasibility study requires to carry out the project optimization study in consideration to irrigation, flood control, and irrigation benefits, the South Asian power markets, and financial and institutional concern from regional countries' perspective. This is very important for the optimization. Not only the fact that it's the financial institutional concern from regional countries, because it is being developed as a regional project, it has the concern has to be addressed in this. The planned upstream storage type hydropower development will further firm up the energy generation capacity of Karnali Chissapani. Consequently, the consultant requires to carry out the system simulation in light of the upstream development in the Karnali River Basin, considering ongoing project and proposed project both, using the most correct information of the upstream projects, with irrigation, flood control, and navigation co-benefits to be optimized along with the power generation. The power system simulation requires to be updated, considering the increase in demand, current plant under construction generation capacities in Nepal and electricity demand and current generation capacity in the regional countries. The consultant to be hired for updating of the feasibility study of the Karnali project shall review the power market both in Nepal and in the region. For this, the consultant will prepare electricity demand forecast in the regional countries and the generation technologies that are likely to be displaced by the project, and then determine the power benefits of the Karnali project, taking into account the current power market situation in Nepal and in the region. The HPC report has noted that the project benefit estimates were based on insufficient information. In power system benefits, they have written, since limited cost data was available from official Indian sources and unofficial sources and reasonable assumptions for comparative generation and cost characteristics, capital cost, fuel cost, and unit cost of generation used in the feasibility study would result into estimated power benefit less than the actual. The updated feasibility study needs to estimate the power and energy benefit by collecting the information from the official sources. So it should not be limited. The should not be limitations for the study. Okay, it is very important. Once it is being developed as a regional basis, so it will not be limitations, I think. Okay, as far as irrigation benefits is concerned, as the pertinent data information and irrigation benefits was not available from relevant official sources, the benefit were evaluated both with and without the Chissapani project. This will dependent on the interpretation of the available information from relevant Indian reports and other background documents on water and land use concept throughout the Ghagra and Ganga plain. Furthermore, as the information on the downstream irrigation project is limited, the benefit estimate in this area is also in the conservative side. Owing to this, the updated feasibility study requires to collect relevant information from official sources of government of India, Bangladesh to define the irrigation benefits, Nepal as well. The flood control benefits in India and Bangladesh. The study has estimated flood control benefits further downstream in India and Bangladesh. It, however, states that such benefit in India and Bangladesh are very uncertain due to lack of data. So this is the limitation of the study. It has to be addressed very carefully. Thus, the total flood control benefits appear to be far less than the actual irrigation benefits. The updated feasibility study requires collecting relevant data in Nepal, Bangladesh, and India and refining the flood control benefits. In light of the above discussion, it is essential to estimate the power benefits, irrigation benefits, and flood control benefits using updated information. Although the study has stated that downstream navigation benefits are not significant given the river transport is not economically competitive with other methods of transportation, it may be worthwhile to revisit this conclusion backed up by a detailed analysis. So the consultant of the feasibility, updated feasibility study should review this and should do revisit the navigation benefit also by detailed analysis. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai, for your detailed presentation on the review of feasibility study of Himalayan Power Consultants of December 1989. Now we move on to our next presentation, which is the development of Karnali Chissapani as regional hydropower project. For this presentation, Mr. D.N. Raina, he will be the presenter. So, Mr. D.N. Raina, can you hear me now?
Listen to you now.
Okay, so
Are you
Mr.
able
D.N.
to
Raina,
hear me?
we can listen to you. If you could please present your presentation so that we may be able to see it as well.
Are you able to see this chapter 4 now?
No, we are not able to see the screen.
Just a moment. Now you are able to see the presentation?
No, sir. If you go
What
to the top,
happens?
there's sharing, and then sharing, you could be able to share
Just a
your
moment. Show control panel, people, video. You control therapy, moves attendee. Make sure. Draw tools. Earlier I was able to make it. I don't know why it's happening now. Sharing.
You have to go to the sharing, and within sharing, there is the show screen option.
Just a moment. I am seeing on the right, extreme right panel, there is an arrow. Show screen. Then there is people can
Yes,
hear you.
show
Click.
screen. You have to press show screen.
Where is that? That icon I am not able to see.
You can't see show screen option on sharing.
No, I am not seeing the sharing. I
Hello.
am not seeing it.
Sir,
Sharing I am not
in your
seeing.
sir, actually in your control panel, just on the
Yes.
above of the arrow, orange button, orange arrow, you have to press that. Then your main control panel will be open.
Ah, yes. So orange panel I have just
Yes,
seen. Now,
yes. You
where is the
have to
show
press it.
screen?
Yes,
I
and
am
on the
clicking
top,
that. Sharing,
yes, sharing. Yes.
sharing.
Now there is a play button.
Show screen button.
Just,
Big button, round button, play. You have to press that.
just a moment. Sharing webcam and audio.
No,
Below
sir.
sharing, uh,
It's on above sharing. You have to
Wait. Sir, don't press the webcam button. Press the sharing button. Press the
I have just,
small arrow near the sharing button,
yes,
and then
play,
you
show screen.
show screen. Then
Is it visible to you now?
still not visible, sir.
You are able to see, show screen?
No, we can't see your screen. Now we can see your screen. Now.
Just give me a minute, give me a minute. Let me just close it down or reduce it. Let me just go to this. You are able to see the presentation now?
We can see your screen, but not the presentation. We can see the Google Chrome.
No,
Now we
I
can.
just,
Yes, now we can see your screen.
so I am present in the chapter 4 now.
Yes, sir. I have a small request because we are short of time. So if you could please complete it within the allotted 15 minutes, so that then we
I
can
will
move
make
on
it
to
10
the next
minutes.
presentation.
Don't worry, I understand that. We are already exceeding the time. I will just make it not more than 5 to 10 minutes.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much.
Because a lot of about the things that I had to speak has been already spoken by Mr. Leelanath. So I will try to rush through some slides. I'm not going to
Sure.
just.
And sir, please make the screen bigger. Go to the full screen mode so that the whole screen, whole
On my,
presentation slide is visible.
on my machine, it is full screen.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. You may proceed now.
Yeah. Are you able to see some figures in the table in the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just giving you an overview about the energy resource endowments of the SARC region. This gives a country-wise breakup of the various energy resources that the region has. The first column gives the country name, second the coal reserves, oil, next one, then natural gas, biomass, then hydro, then solar power, and wind. Go to, if we just take a look on the second column, the coal, you will see the resources vary from 0 million tons in Maldives to 90,000 million tons in the case of India.
Sir, your slide, we are looking at your first slide, the title slide. We can't look at the other slides.
But I had just, you are able to see the title slide now?
Yeah, we can only see title slide, but if you can move the slides so that we can go on to other slides as well.
I have moved the slide. I'm seeing them on my screen. It is a slide, and next slide is the table. You are not able to see that?
No, sir, we can only see the first title slide.
Just a moment.
If you can close the presentation and run it again, that might help.
Just give me a second. I will just close the presentation and then run it again. No, just a moment. It is not closing, man. On air, just a moment.
Yes, now we can see.
Now you can see the slide?
Yes, sir. We are on a table.
I'm just giving the name of the countries, the coal reserves here. I was discussing and explaining that now the coal reserves in case of Maldives, where my pointer is pointing to, it is 0, while as India has the largest coal reserve of 90 million tons, which is virtually the 5th largest coal reserves in the world. Oil, you can see it is minimal everywhere. Only 2 countries, that is India and Pakistan, and to a small extent, Sri Lanka have the oil reserves. India has 5,700 and 12 is Bangladesh. Natural gas, India 39, Pakistan 15, and then we move to 33. Total is 19.5. You are able to see this? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You may proceed now.
Then we go to biomass. The figures are given here. The least biomass reserves we have in Maldives and the highest in Nepal. Then we move on to hydropower. We have virtually 0 megawatt capacity potential in Maldives, while as 150 gigawatts in case of India, followed by Pakistan 83, Nepal 83 gigawatts, Pakistan 60 gigawatts roughly, and then solar power potential, we have quite a bit of it. All the countries in the region have it, and then we go to the wind. And in case of Bangladesh, Afghanistan and Bangladesh, the figures are not much available because in case of Bangladesh, it is very limited reserves. In case of Afghanistan, though the wind power mapping had been done, but I don't know why the figures are not available in public domain. That is true of Maldives as well. Pakistan and India, along with Sri Lanka, they have large reserves of the wind power in the region. Electricity generation in each of the countries, the name of the countries is given on the second column, and the installed capacities, the biggest installed capacity being India at 350,000 megawatt, and the lowest being Nepal with 898. See the difference of the potential that has been harnessed. In the previous slide, I was discussing about Nepal having 83,000 megawatts potential and only 898 megawatts has been exploited. While as India has 84,000, out of which the generation capacity as on date, it is not only hydro, it is overall all sources put together, because Nepal has only hydro with a little bit of coal in that mix, while as India has several factors in that, so that makes it 350,000 megawatts, and then comes Pakistan, followed by Bangladesh and other countries. Then we go down, oh sorry, what is happening here? Just give me a second. The next slide is access to electricity. When we come to access to electricity in South Asia, it varies from 15% in Bangladesh to 100% in Maldives. see the difference between the within the region. Only 15% people in Afghanistan have access to electricity, while Bangladesh is 41%, Bhutan 60%, India 66%, Maldives 100%, Nepal 43, Pakistan 62, and Sri Lanka. Rather, the two biggest the people countries which have the highest level of access to electricity are Maldives 100% and Sri Lanka 88%. The per capita energy consumption of the SAARC countries is given in this slide, which varies from 49 kilowatt hours in the per year in the case of Afghanistan, goes up to 977 kilowatt hours in the case of Bhutan, and rest of all of us follow in between somewhere. Country-wise hydropower potential, which I had just discussed, stated in the previous at the introduction level itself. We have quite a bit of hydropower potential. If we go to the column 3 where my mouse is going, Afghanistan has 23,000 megawatts potential. Afghanistan, of course, has very minimal, that is 1,897. Bhutan has 30,000, India 150, Nepal 83. Pakistan has a very big potential after India, that is 100,000 megawatts. Sri Lanka 4,000, and you will observe that Sri Lanka has harnessed nearly, if you go to the last column, you will see Sri Lanka has just harnessed 67%. That is the highest percentage harnessed by any country in the region as a percentage of potential, not in absolute terms. Pakistan has a potential of 100,000 megawatts. Economically viable is 60,000 megawatts, out of which only 10-11% has been harnessed. India, which has a hydropower potential of 150,000 megawatts and economically viable is 84,400, and 40,000 has been harnessed. That makes it 47,000. So there is a big gap if we see to column 4 and column 5, which give the economically feasible potential and the present generation. See the difference. Afghanistan 18,400, only 200 harnessed. Bangladesh 750, 200 harnessed. Bhutan 23,000, 1400 harnessed. Of course, Bhutan will be adding a massive hydropower potential within the next 10 years, because large hydropower potential projects are being developed right now in that country. Similarly, Pakistan 60,000, only 7,000 roughly has been harnessed. So out of the 391,000 megawatts we have, the potential, the economically viable potential is 231,000 megawatts, out of which only 50,000, nearly one-fifth of the total hydropower potential that is economically viable, has been harnessed so far on a regional basis if we just make an average over the region. Now, why is it important to develop the Karnali Chissapani as a regional hydropower project? It is a very, very large project, I stated earlier as well, with a capacity of 10,800 megawatts assessed in 1990. And maybe with the new interventions of technology and new assessment tools that we have right now, this capacity could perhaps go much beyond 10,800 megawatts, and it has the potential of becoming the largest hydropower project in one single site across the world. The second advantage would be the joint development by the SAARC countries, because when there is a single owner, the risk assessment of the financiers is very, very highly perceived. But if there are several developers for that project, there is a joint development by several countries, the risks get mitigated to a very large extent. So joint development will facilitate early financing, and even the cost of financing will be less. The third big advantage of developing this project as a regional project would be 100% energy generated by the project will be committed. There won't be even 1 kilowatt hour which will go waste any time of the year. Whatever energy will be generated by the project, it will be sold to the participating countries, and the demand is so high, and the gap between demand and supply in all the countries is very large. We are facing 8 to 10 hour power cuts in various countries in different seasons. So 100% energy uptake will ensure that the project is extremely beneficial, financially, economically, and otherwise as well. and spreading of risk through multiple shareholding will reduce the financing costs considerably. Another important factor would be the development financial institutions like the World Banks, the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, or other banks, European Bank, or the Islamic banks, or whichever banks are there, or development financial institutions are there across the globe, and even the global capital markets. They will be definitely attracted to such a large investment of the magnitude of around 16 billion to 20 billion dollars by the time we come up with the feasibility study. I'm sure that the project is going to be over and above $20 billion. Such a massive investment will entail the financing opportunities for all the financiers that you can see on the horizon. And with their expertise, with their assistance for the various kind of studies and other kinds of support, you can really have a very good project. Then the SAR framework agreement on energy cooperation electricity signed by the SARC member states commits all these countries to facilitate electricity flows across South Asia, thereby obviating the need to obtain the right of way for transmission corridors for the Karnali Chissapani energy that is generated from that project. Now I am moving to the next slide. We see the energy cooperation has the potential to encourage cooperation in other sectors. Interdependence between countries, due to whatever reasons it is done, it builds trust, it builds cooperation. Once that trust starts building up, I am sure that the internal bickerings that we have within our misperceptions that we have between the countries or among the countries in the region will get reduced considerably. I am 100% sure about that because I have carried out several other studies as well, whereby I have just seen the benefits of a particular style of cooperation just encompasses other sectors of economy as well. That gives me the encouragement and helps me make this statement very confidently. However, before moving further, as stated by Leelaji as well, we need to do some further studies. That is the power market study. The quick brush has on the things to be just seen. There have been given by Mr. Leelaji, and the study report lists those things very in detail. Then willingness and affordability of consumers to pay for the Karnali power would be another important factor. Though I am sure that given the present prevailing tariffs across South Asia, Karnali is going to be one of the very, very reasonable and very attractive power projects, and its tariffs would be quite competitive in comparison to any other project that we are just seeing right now on ground. Then the power system to evacuate energy from the project, because in the 1989-90 study, the main objective was to just generate electricity in Nepal and take it to the Indian power system. Now that we are contemplating that this project will be a multi-stakeholder project, maybe 4 countries, 5 countries, or 6 countries, or maybe all countries in SARC will be participants in this project. So there will be load flow studies and detailed other studies associated with the transmission of energy will be required to do that. And energy security for South Asia, where I happen to be a part of the team or the team leader for that study as well. They also highlighted the need for harnessing hydropower resources in South Asia to meet the demand in the region. And I believe with that, I will just close my thing and I will request you to pass on the mic to Mr. Mahesh Acharya for presenting chapter 5 and 6. Hello?
Thank you very much, Mr. Durganath Raina, for your presentation. Now we move on to our next presenter, who is Mr. Mahesh Acharya. Mr. Mahesh has over 25 years of experience in power sector in planning, power sector investment and financial analysis, procurement and implementation and project management in Nepal. He has led implementation of a number of power projects under multilateral banks financing covering generation, transmission and distribution. His experience also includes regional energy trade and cooperation in South Asia under SARI Energy Program, which is a US aid funded regional project for the promotion of energy trade among South Asian countries. Currently, he is working as an independent consultant advising government agencies in Nepal bilateral and multilateral agencies on energy policy, power sector planning, hydropower, renewable energy, and related fields. He holds undergraduate degree in electrical engineering and master's degree in energy planning and policy, as well as another master's in management. So, Mr. Mahesh P. Acharya, you would be presenting your talk on TOR's cost of hiring consultants and the way forward for the Karnali Chissapani hydropower project. Mr. Mahesh, can you may proceed with your presentation, and I hope that you are well connected and we can hear your audio voice.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll be continuing with the the same presentation that Mr. Bhatrai presented before. Um,
Sure, please go
Basically,
ahead.
I'm focusing on the preparation of the terms of reference and its content. As was discussed previously by Mr. Bhatrai, there are a number of observations that the team made by way of gap, to identify the areas that need to be addressed in the updating of the feasibility study. Those have been incorporated in this terms of reference. Basically, the objective, as you understand, is to prepare the project leading to implementation. That means one is to update the feasibility studies of the project, and second one is to prepare the detailed design, leading to the preparation of construction document, tender document, and other related documents leading to award of contract to the consultant to the contractors. So basically, we have broken down this the activity into two phases. First phase comprises of updating of the feasibility study, the HPC feasibility study, and most of the all the gaps that we have identified in the review will be incorporated here. So besides, as was mentioned by Mr. Rainer, detailed study on the power market, power systems, and willingness of consumers to pay for the electricity in the region is one of the additional areas that we have to cover in this study. And in the given change scenario in the region, for example, in the current situation, because of this climate change issues, hydropower has taken front stage. Hydropower and other renewable energy has taken the front stage. So from that perspective, also perhaps further analysis has to be done. Then it also includes how this project is to be financed. This is a significantly large project. The financing is an issue, and also the implementation, what modality to follow is another issue. Those also has to be identified and analyzed as part of the phase one of the project, and the risk analysis has to be done. These are the areas we have proposed under phase one. This is basically updating of the existing study and with some additional coverage. And based on this phase one study, since this will also include updating the financial analysis. So once we determine that the project is feasible, given the risk associated with environmental social aspect of the project, which, as you have noted in our earlier presentation, SPC feasibility study has not covered to that detail. And in the given situation, this the level of resettlement that necessary may be significantly higher than what was there during the 1989 study period. So once we determine that this project is feasible for the regional development, then we propose to go for phase second. So basically, we are proposing that the consultants should be hired for the phase one study, and if they find if the project is found to be feasible, then that particular consultant can be retained for second phase of the study, or if the performance is not as desired, then perhaps another consultant can be selected. So basically, in phase second, we'll be carrying out detailed design, including modeling of the structures, hydraulic modeling of the structure, including mathematical modeling. We have proposed two types of modeling. One is mathematical modeling, this numerical modeling. Another is the physical modeling. And then that will be followed by detailed engineering design of the project components, and also refinement of the benefits, and ultimately leading to the refinement of the project and various documents, including drawings. So in phase one, we have identified here 12 tasks. One is the inception report on the assignment, is inception report, and second one is review and update site investigation and studies. Third one is review and update hydrological, meteorological, and sedentological studies. And task 4A, basically it's a 13 task. Task 4A is regional power market and austerity studies. Task 4B, willingness and affordability of consumers in the region. And task 5, review and update the power evacuation study. And task 6, review and update project configuration and project components. And next task 7 is review and update of project organization study. Task 8 will consist of review and update of reservoir simulation. And task 9, review and update of and conduct detailed environmental and social studies. And task 10 will be review and update of project benefit system. And likewise, ultimately, it will go end with the analysis of institutional arrangement for project implementation. These are the various tasks. And in the following slides, we'll review what is proposed to be undertaken as part of each study. In task one, as we mentioned, this is basically inception report preparation. So here, as usual, the consultant is expected to review the 1989 study of the project, and identify the key areas which require additional work besides what we have written in our TOR. Probably if the consultant can identify any further gaps, then they can recommend here and accordingly plan for further investigation, and the planning of the work in the field, visit to the site, and establish the methodology and procedure for studies and the preparation of the inception report. This is what is included in the task one. Task second consists of review and update of site investigation studies. Yeah, basically, they will be carrying out this topological survey, topographical survey, as was discussed before by Mr. Bhattrai. So we have proposed LiDAR mapping as one of the ways to prepare these topographical maps. And further hydrological, meteorological, and sedimentological investigation has to be carried out as part of this. And perhaps these issues have been discussed already in dwelt upon by Mr. Bhattrai. So I think there's not much need for me to dwell on this further. So basically, here we'll be collecting supplementary data on hydrogen sediments, and the climate change issue will also be investigated. All the data will be collected for the climate change related studies, and the likely increased erosion in the catchment areas will also be investigated, and comprehensive investigation to reduce long-term reservoir sedimentation will be studied here. Those will be the outcome of this study. And in addition, this geological and technical and construction material investigation, as I discussed earlier, will be taken care of here. And seismological investigation will also be carried out. This is very important in light of the recent earthquake in 2012 that Nepal faced. So, there are this parameter design basis earthquake and maximum critical earthquake. These are the parameters that I think they have to take care of, which were not considered in the earlier study. Investigation related to glacier outburst. Bluff is one area where we think further study has to be done. Although there is little likelihood of bluff being encountered in that area, but still we see that this has to be taken care of in the updated feasibility study. And another one is environmental and socioeconomic survey. This is very important because, as Mr. Bhattrai mentioned in earlier presentation, given the significant change the land use pattern in the area and the resettlement pattern, this EIA and SIA has to be carried out in line with the requirements of multilateral funding agencies like World Bank, ADB, even IFC, based on perhaps IFC performance standard. So this has to be taken into account in detail. Actually, this activity has to be implemented in detail. Task third is it's a review and update of hydrological and in task 2, this data has been collected. Now here we propose for the additional analysis of those hydrological and sediment related study. In that, in addition to that, as was mentioned before, this hydrological, meteorological, and several studies will be carried out, to update the previous study, and in that, long-term stream flow, flood frequency analysis, including PMP and PMF, has to be updated. Reservoir simulation has to be, updated. Power potential has to be updated based on the, current development of stream development. As was mentioned before, there are a few projects, some reservoir, some ROR project that's being implemented upstream of this Karnali River. Those, the regulated flow from those projects has to be taken into account while updating this power potential of this project. And the dam break analysis is another area that has to be taken care of. And hydrological study has to take into account long-term stream flow at the project site, and flood frequency analysis to reassess the appropriate design flow in light of the change design pattern in the flow, maybe because of climate change or because of upstream development. And sediment related study has to be updated, as was mentioned before. Few observations, few samples were taken in the previous study, but there has to be assessed in detail, and this is important in light of the change in catchment area upstream. So there may be a significant change in the sediment flow in the river. Similarly, we have also asked to update this meteorological study, because in the meantime there have been a lot of information on the rain forecasting and other and temperature variations. Those will be available from the government offices. Those has to be taken care of and utilized in the updating of the study. And also, as I mentioned before, the effect of dam construction upstream of the Karnali Chissapani project site will also have effect on that. And based on that, this will be input for the simulation study of the reservoir simulation models. Those will be this will be the major input to that. And the estimation of the load flow due to glacier lake outbursts, as has been mentioned before, this will be part of the study. And determination of reservoir storage in consideration of the load pattern and its growth potential and technical economic aspect. So this is one area where I think significant focus has to be done. Earlier, project optimization was carried out for Indian power market basically. So here, this has to be reviewed, as was mentioned before, not only for the power benefit but also for the other benefit, irrigation and flood control benefits, and perhaps even for the for those river transportation kind of benefit has to be taken into account. And also climate change is one area that is a new area that has to be taken into account in the analysis. So in task 4A, we have proposed to carry out the power market study for Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, if this project is to be developed as a regional project. And similarly, in power 4B, we have the project, although found feasible on technical ground in the HPC study, given the additional costs that are likely to be incurred in social and environmental safeguard related activities. So we have to identify whether the cost of the generation is still be marketable given the willingness to pay and the competition from other alternative renewable energy like solar PV. That has to be taken into account. And in task 5, we have proposed to review and update the power evacuation study. In the earlier study, the HPC study of 1989, this power was supposed to be consumed largely in India, because then the power market in Nepal was very small. So now the things have changed. Actually, Nepal power market has also grown significantly, and as we plan to develop this as a regional project for the South Asian countries, so we have to take into account larger power market in the South Asian region. that has to be taken into account. And evacuation system for that, all those transmission facilities for that, the current status and what is necessary has to be worked out in detail. Perhaps in this, major load center will be India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and also to some extent Nepal. So this has to be, this potential load center has to be taken into account, and how those load center could be connected with these powers, with the power generation from this Karnali river has to be taken into account. So this has to be, the study has to be done for that. And in class 6, we have proposed the review and update of project configuration and project component. As I mentioned before, although this SPC study was, at the technical level, was a comprehensive study, they carried a number of, analysis, and they were well done. Still, we have proposed that, those, whatever they have proposed in terms of the structure, location has to be reviewed at least. And one area, there's a gap is there. They say that for the re-regulating dam, the geology was not, confirmed at that point, because the, sufficient geotechnical investigation were not carried out. So that part has to be taken into account in detail. Yeah. Besides, we have proposed to review some of the, technical parameters and design issues, as was proposed in the SBC report. Basically, there hasn't been much technical change except perhaps in some of the control systems and protection system in the electrical system. Besides that, although we have proposed a review, but most of the existing, previous study is generally well done. So we have proposed some of the reviews as necessary. And here, one area we have proposed is that, carrying out the first computational numeric hydraulic modeling, like using computational fluid dynamics, and also physical modeling. We have proposed first to take, carry out computational hydraulic modeling, and then that will be verified through physical modeling for the hydraulic structures. That we have proposed here. And the review, the engineering drawings has to be updated as necessary. So task seven consists of updating of the project optimization study. As was mentioned before, because then in the SPC 1989 study, basically previous study was a system optimized for power generation, power benefit, taking Indian market as the key market. So here, since this is proposed to be developed as a multi-purpose project, besides power benefit, we have proposed to take into account the irrigation and another flood control and other benefits that may be navigational benefit also if that is significant. So the consultant we have proposed the consultant to carry out all those benefits. So optimization has to be reviewed in this significantly, not only for power benefit but to take into account other benefits. Similarly, as based linked to the system optimization is the reservoir simulation study. This has to be again redone. So we have proposed this to be done again, taking into account all those those benefits, irrigation, flood control benefit besides power benefit. So in taxonomy we have covered the need for review and updating of the environmental impact and safeguarding studies. When this 1989 study was carried out, the concept of full-fledged EIA, SIA, RAP was not there, because even Nepal government we didn't have any regulation on environmental related activities like EP, Environmental Protection Act came later on, and environmental protection rules that followed was subsequent to that. And also the multilateral and bilateral agency did have stringent social safeguard related requirements and resettlement related requirements. So now in light of the change legal regulatory environment related to the environmental and social issues, so this environmental and social related activities study has to be updated completely. Basically, EIA, SIA, and RAP and whatever, all those activity has to be prepared. And also nearby area is the buffer zone. Buffer zone is the nearby conservation area. So those area also has to be the impact on the development of the project in those conservation area also to be taken into account. This I'm sorry for this error here. Not this ACRP. This is a RAP preparation. Further, based on that EIA, SIA, and resettlement action plan or resettlement plan, the environmental social management plan has to be EMP has to be prepared, and also possibly if it is financed by some donor agencies, then the indigenous and vulnerable communities development plan has to be prepared. These are the new requirements which were not there as part of the earlier study. And also, since the land use pattern and the number of population affected, likely affected households and population has significantly increased since 1989. So we have proposed that to carry out full, update our new census survey and identification of the plot of land, those who will likely to be affected by the project to be acquired. Everything has to be updated. This area, I mean, this particular study has to be significantly updated actually. And in the environmental social management plan, detailed monitoring framework also has to be prepared as required by various guidelines, and also assess the capability of the HPP agencies to implement all those project, this project, including financing and monitoring and also other related activities, and to assess their capacity and to identify areas where the capacity enhancement has to be is necessary. And also public hearing as part of the EIA process has to be taken into account. Now, as we mentioned before, the project benefit stream has to be updated. As you said before earlier, power benefit was the major one. So now, once we take into account this irrigation and navigation and flood control benefit as co-benefits of this project. So the project benefit has to be updated. Power benefit, irrigation benefit, flood control benefit, navigation benefit has to be updated and evaluated, I think, in terms of quantitatively. Now, once we have all those tax, previous tax taken, implemented, then finally it's updating of the feasibility study. So this is a part of the final deliverables that we're expecting from the consultant. So basically, these 4 deliverables will be there. Review and perform past design studies, review and update construction planning and scheduling, review and update post project cost and quantity estimation, review and update economic and financial analysis. These are the key deliverables that will be that we expect to have as part of this phase 1 of the study. And finally, we have proposed this institutional arrangement for project implementation. This is a region. If this is to be developed by a regional project, this is how to bring all the regional country to agree on developing this project is one of the key challenges here. Geopolitical issues, all those has to be taken care of. According to we expect that the consultant has to recommend how to move ahead with this project. What is structure implemented? Structure to be followed. What is the financial morality? How the risk has to be shared among the regional countries, and all those things has to be taken into account here. So we expect the consultant to propose, to make a proposal on this, how this project can be implemented on the ground. So in the phase 2, this is basically once we have phase 1 completed, then if we find this project to be feasible and we feel in the regional countries the stakeholder feel that this is a project to be carried forward, then we move to phase 2. As I said before, the same consultant can be retained to carry out second phase of the project, or if we feel that performance is not okay, then we will have the option to to bring in another consultant if that's the possibility to carry out this second phase of the project. Here, basically, as you said before, we'll be taking into account the detailed design aspect of the project. So we have proposed six tasks here. In task one, we have instruction report on the assignment. Basically, as I said before, this covers how they want to carry forward the phase two of the study. If there is any data gap, they will identify, and they will propose what data they will gather, and we move to task second. Here we update here review and update update site investigation of study. So basically, what we are proposing was that these studies are part of the studies taken in phase one. So if there is anything necessary to any further gaps, then here the consultant will review those gaps and ask and recommend further investigations to be done, which will be input for the detailed design of the project. In task 3, we have proposed detailed design of the project. Here is basically engineering design. So the and preparation specification and drawings, and the output of this project will lead to the activity will be to the
Excuse me, sir. Sir, I would just like to interject. Could you please kindly be faster and finish this within the next 3 minutes so that we can move on to the next presenter?
And that's fine. I'll just move ahead quickly. Here, basically, detailed design specification drawings will be prepared. This will be basically to the level for the tendering purpose. So that's what we're planning. We are asking the consultant to carry out here. In the task 4, these are the model tests, basically. Before they design the hydraulic, they carry out hydraulic design. Here we have proposed a numeric and hydraulic modeling. Actually, one is a numeric modeling using CFD, computational fluid dynamics as the approach, and the consultant is expected to review to validate this model, the output based on this hydraulic modeling. It's a physical modeling later on. So these are the two activities we have proposed here in task 4. And task 5, refinement of the project cost and construction planning, scheduling, and economic and financial evaluation. This is the scope that we have proposed in task 5. Basically, once we have all those analysis and all those all the investigation in the field and survey and and all those socioeconomic EISI studies, then the company is expected to prepare the project cost, update the project cost, and also propose the construction planning, how this planning can be done, and the and the scheduling, and finally there will be a economic and financial analysis will be carried out by the project, based on which we can conclude on the cost of generation. So we propose that FIDIC yellow book will be yellow book and red book will be used for bidding purpose. Yellow book for electromechanical and transmission line, red book for construction. That's our preliminary recommendation. If this has to be, the stakeholder feel that the project could be done in EPC mode, then the silver book has to be utilized for bidding purpose. And the recommendation and the consultant will recommend whatever they recommend. They discuss with the SEC and other stakeholders and finalize the outcome of this project. Six. So here, as part of phase second, these are the reports deliverables that we have required the consultant to prepare: management report, technical report, environmental report, EISIA, RAP, and all those BCTP, whatever is necessary there, and the combined report, which is a summary report consisting of technical and environmental both. And for phase 1, we have estimated that 24 months is necessary, and phase second 16 months. That's our estimate at the moment. So these are the reports. Actually, we have just outlined here the reports that will be produced by the project in phase 1, and these are the ones in phase 2, as I discussed before. And Further, in the QR, we have we have prepared a list of the list of the experts as necessary for the study. So these are the ones, and based on that, based on whatever we have done, and we have come up with the cost estimation for the consultant. This was based on the power study and the cost estimation for the consulting job. This was prepared based on the power study in Nepal, past studies in Nepal. Since this particular project is very large in size, we have taken the basis of past project as recently completed, 200 megawatt Budi Gandaki hydropower project and 300 megawatt Dudh Kosi project. Both are reservoir projects. We have taken the rates quoted by the consultant as part of this of the hiring of the consultant under quality and cost based procedure. So we have taken the rate that was quoted in the recent projects in Nepal, similar projects in Nepal, we can say. These are the remuneration that we have taken into account while coming up with the cost estimation. It ranges from a maximum to 45,000, down to around 35,000 for the expert international consultant, and for the local 6,000 to from ranging from 2,500 to 6,000. So this is the cost estimate actually for the hiring of consultant. For the phase one, we have come up around 17.6 6 million US dollar for phase one and 9.5 for the phase second. So this is the cost estimate that we have come up with, including that of 13%. So now next one is the way forward. Once SEC and the regional stakeholder countries decide to go ahead with this project, with updating this feasibility study project as part of as described in phase one and phase two, then the next step is to prepare the RFP, request for proposal document, and issue EOI, and decide on what method to follow for procurement of consulting from quality based or QC cost based quality and cost based selection. That's to determine, and on that basis we can move ahead with the preparation of RFP. Then once the RFP has been prepared, this has to be prepared in line with the likely funding agencies for this project. Actually, World Bank, ADB, or any bilateral agencies. So that has to be taken into account. And then there's a once you prepare this RFP, then shortlisting is the next stage, where we propose that 2 months is necessary. Then once we shortlist, then we'll issue the RFP that we propose they will take around 2 months. Then once we have RFP issued, then we evaluate and negotiate and award the contract and set up the contract administration office in Kathmandu possibly. So these are the next step, next activities that we propose to be taken if SCC or the regional country decide that this project has to be taken forward for updating the feasibility study. And these are the ones. Ultimately, we have proposed that ultimately once the project, the report is prepared, updated project feasibility and detailed design report is prepared, then we propose that we take roadshow to be taken to identify before the potential investors, maybe multilateral, bilateral, or private investor has to be taken, and that will be key step in lining up the funding. Then after that, we estimate that 9 years of construction period will be necessary for this. Okay. So here we have provided some threshold criteria for minimum as a minimum qualification requirement for selecting the consultants. So we propose that since this is a large project, finding consultant with the experience in developing a project of this size in recent past may be difficult. So we have proposed that the consultant should be required to have at least 4,200 megawatt experience in similar activity in in designing and feasibility study design of 4,200 megawatt hydropower project, which is around 40% of the Karnali Chissapani capacity. And also dam height, we have proposed at 180 meter 180 meter or higher. So yeah, this is two-thirds of the dam height of the Karnali Chissapani river. So that is the basic preliminary proposal that we have made for the selection and qualification of the consultant. So I think I have done with it. Thank you very much for your time. Mr.
Thank
Pradhan.
you very much, Mr. Mahesh. Now I will give the role to Mr. Durganath Raina, as he's going to end this presentation with his concluding remarks. So, Mr. Raina, you may start now.
Uh, Thank you, Mahesh and Leelaji. I am really grateful for just doing a wonderful job of presenting such a detailed study in such a brief time. And I don't know, basically, this was a presentation which had to be done in person, people participating face to face, and then things could have been discussed in detail. Somehow it didn't materialize that way, and we have to be on the web, and time limitation is a big factor over there. And I believe we have me and my team, we have done a good job, and it's up to the SEC to assess, and also to the participants. If they have any questions, they are welcome to just pose those questions. Hello.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durganath, sir. So we have a lot of question and answers, but we will proceed it for the question and answer session after the towards the very end, because we are already running behind our schedule. So now we are going to take a break till 1 p.m. At 1, Miss Xiaoping Wong from the World Bank will join us for for a session in which she will give the World Bank's overview and the World Bank's perspective to the regional hydropower projects. And then we will move on to the challenges for the development of Karnali Chissapani as a regional power project by Mr. Mujib Ahmed from Elan Partners. Afterwards, we will have the detailed question and answer session. So I hope that the study team would also stay online till that time, so that you may answer the questions. So thank you very much, everyone, for bearing with us and for the presentations. We will join you again at 1 p.m. Pakistan time. The organizer team at SARC Energy Center is back after a short break, and now we will proceed with further presentations of this important webinar on the review of feasibility study of Karnali Chissapani hydropower project. Uh, with us, we have Mr. Xiaoping Wang from the World Bank. Uh, Dr. Xiaoping Wang is a senior energy specialist at the World Bank based in Karnali, engagement in Nepal includes advisory services on sector strategies, enabling policy and regulations to promote private sector participation, and more than $400 million direct investments in generation, transmission, and distribution. She has more than 20 years of experience in the Chinese government, UNDP, and for the last 14 years at the World Bank. She holds a PhD degree in energy and environment policy from Princeton University and a master's degree in environmental economics from the Yale University. So, Ms. Xiaoping Wang, welcome to the webinar. Uh, I have given you the presenter rights, and you may continue now.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about World Bank work. And I feel very much connected to this Karnali Chissapani project for two reasons. One is, Nepal is a host country, but more than that, the World Bank indeed supported the feasibility study of this project in 1989. And it's good to see that there's still keen interest to this project. What I would like to do is that since I'm leading the energy program in Nepal, I want to get to the flavor of how World Bank is supporting hydropower development in general, but more specifically in Nepal, as well as when we talk about hydropower in Nepal, we cannot leave out the regional dimension of that. So I also talk a little bit about what does that mean for this project for Nepal and for the region, and what kind of World Bank instruments we have or have been used in supporting hydropower project and the regional projects. I just want to check the quality of the voice. Is that okay?
Yes, Ms. Shopping, we can hear you properly and your screen is also visible. The only request is if you could enlarge the slides so that we could view the full screen option of your slide.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Does it work now?
Yeah, it's working properly. So we can look at the presentations and everything, and your voice is quite audible. So you may proceed now.
Excellent. So in the World Bank, we see we have been heavily engaged in hydropower, and we see hydropower is not the technology of the past, but the technology of the future. Over the last 13, 14 years, we have invested specifically about more than nearly 400 dams in different countries around the world. And these include hydropower, and the largest use of dams is the irrigation, but then the second use of these dams are hydropower, and they also supply water supply, navigation, and flood control, etc. Going forward, the World Bank see hydropower is an integral part of the renewable agenda, and as well as the low carbon climate change agenda. We see hydropower not only to provide the base load power, but offers the flexibility into system operations, as well as as a peaking power. We also see that the water resources are not only for power generation, but also for multiple uses. I think what I mean to say that our interest is more on more integrated use of resources and the economically rational use of water resources for power generation, irrigation, navigation, water supply, tourism, etc. Now coming back to Nepal, as you know, Nepal is a hydro-dominated country, and then more than 90% of the current installed capacity is hydro. But the installed capacity compared to its potential is just a small fraction of it. And Nepal even today is still facing the power shortage, although less so than 12 months or 18 months ago. We see hydropower is critical for Nepal, not only for reliable energy supply, but are also critical as one of the key drivers for socio-economic development in Nepal. And how so? When you look at the future projection, if you look at the 10 years forward, Nepal not only has a potential to become self-sufficient for itself, but it will have actually a large sum of surplus power available, and there's a small amount available in dry season, as you see from this graph. But there's a very large quantum of surplus power will become available. And to make a good use of this power and make it available to the regional market will, not only help other countries in the region to acquire a cost-effective power, but are also critically important for Nepal to earn revenue from this power and to promote its own economic growth. So, and on the investment front, to real that ambition, you need investment. So what kind of scale of investment we are talking about in Nepal? We're looking at not only the generation side, which in Nepal is expected to be taken care of by both the public sector and the IPPs. But we are also looking at the transmission and the distribution infrastructure that will enable both the power supply in Nepal, but also power export. So overall, we are looking at about nearly $6 billion investment in the next 10 years for in transmission and distribution. We are looking at another about $10 billion in generation, where NEA or the government might hold an interest. And this number does not include the IPPs that will be, that are expected to increase as well during the same period. It also neither does it include power imports that will be needed, particularly for dry season. So we at the World Bank, we have been working with the government to have this dialogue, and one of the key questions has been, where this large sum of investments come from. And if you look at the historical data, Nepal invests about $300 million per year in the energy sector, including GTD and generation, transmission, distribution. And this where we figure that in the next 10 years they need about at least about $2 billion per year. So and this is a dramatic increase. So one of the approaches we have been discussing with the government is what we call maximizing finance for development. And what does that mean in concrete terms? The gist of this MFD, or maximizing finance for investment, is that the public sector finance resources is very limited. So pursuing private sector solution where they can help achieve development goals and reserve public finance for where it's most needed. In other words, we're talking about the leverage. The public, be bilateral, multilateral organization, or the government, or the public entities like NEA will continue to investment. But in order to meet the total investment needs, we need to use this limited public resources to leverage the financial sector. And the question is, how can we do that? Where you will put the public resources, or where you're going to put the private sector resources. Many of you are experts of Nepal, so I just want to show this slide that Nepal is not new to private sector. Nepal actually, the energy sector is one of the early reformers in the early 90s by introducing IPPs, to the generation side. Up to date, IPPs accounts almost half of the energy generated in Nepal. But the question, as we all know, is that it's not enough. So what do we do about it? So there's a quite a suite of planned reforms that by the government in the energy sector to take place. Including the new Electricity Act, IEA restructuring, and the power trade. But how we can go from here to make the big jump to the future and to more than quadruple the investment that's needed for the sector. We together with the government and other stakeholders see that there's a few major bottlenecks here facing Nepal. The first one is governance and the sector structure. There's overlapping roles, there's confusion about different government agencies and ministries. There's a long-waited operationalization of the NERC Act. There's a need for strategic planning and both for generation, transmission, distribution, but also at the river basin-wise planning. NEA lack of creditworthiness has become a major impediment for private sector and in particular both domestic private sector and the international investors to come in. And there's a number of non-standardized, cumbersome, procedures and policies, and there's an uneven playing field for IPPs. As opposed to NEA on investment in generation. There's environmental social issues. Last and not the least is also the bottleneck has to do with a project implementation capacity in both the public sector and the private sector, as well as contract management and procurement, etc. So in concrete terms, we have been working with the government, in concretizing this MFD approach, and our engagement, I would say, in two categories. First is upstream on the power sector reform, financial viability, and sector planning. We are actually preparing a major power sector reform operation with Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources, and Irrigation, with the objective to reduce losses, regularize tariff setting, and standardize, the power purchase agreement and environmental social procedures, and strengthen the sector planning. We have been providing a number of TAs to the power sector, including strategy piece, but also technical assistance to, for example, preparation of a larger hydro study such as Upper Rhone. We have been providing advisory service on improving the financial viability of long-term financial viability of NEA, and the operationalization of the NERC Act, etc., etc. But and the second category is where we about investment. This includes both direct investment, as many of you know that we offer very concessional IDA credit to the government, interest-free. As Bhaskar-ji mentioned, that we have about nearly $400 million direct investment in the sector. But more importantly, we have been also the support, private sector projects like a Karnali A, like Upper Trishuli. And here is really the manifestation of the MFD approach, where you use very limited public resources to leverage larger sum of private sector investment. So, for example, in Karnali A project, 37 megawatt, the size is not that big, but the financing structure, in my view, is really innovative, and it's the first of its kind in Nepal. where the project established SPV, the Karnali Energy Limited (KEL), with 3 equity shareholders. But then because they signed a PPA with NEA, but because of the the creditworthiness of NEA, the challenge facing the sector, this PPA is not directly bankable in an international capital market. So, but the project is important for Nepal and it's a good project. So the way we structure this is that we leverage the private sector finance, commercial financing through our sister organization, International Finance Corporation. And they provide, about $38 million financing in nearly commercial term. On the other hand, the World Bank IDA comes in, we provide about $40 million in concessional term to lower the risks, the PPA risks or the sector risks for this project. And the way, because IDA, our counterpart is a government. The way we structure is that the government borrow from the World Bank as a credit, and then the government, Minister of Finance in this case, own lend to private sectors through HIDCL, this financial intermediary. At the same time, we also provide $6 million grant to support capacity building, cumulative environmental assessment, and technical assistance. So in this way, with say $46 million concessional financing, we leverage the private sector plus, the equity part plus the commercial financing of about $50 million. So another example I want to show here is Upper Chishuli project, which is still under preparation. As you know, the PPA was signed with NEA in January this year. But here we, World Bank Group, including IFC, MEGA, and IDA, come together saying, look, there's a number of risks the private sector feel like they still cannot overcome. Other than the financing challenges. One is the political risk. Understandably, until recently, the Nepal has gone through a few, successitude of government, and the, international investors are not fully comfortable with the situation. Even the stability, it has improved a lot. So our sister organization, MEGA, comes in and says, I can offer the political risk guarantee up to $150 million of sponsors' equity. So in case, for example, there's civil war, there's a, change of the government, abduction of the government, and the MEGA will be coming in to cover that equity portion of the sponsor. And then the IDA here comes in and say, look, we were not planning to make a direct investment as Karnali, since situation has been different now, but we can provide a political risk, partial risk guarantee if there's commercial financing involved, and if there's, for example, default in PPA payment, and you can call upon this partial risk guarantee. And we are also because this is a partial dollar PPA, IDA, we are also providing technical assistance to the government to say, look, we have international experience, we have expertise in the bank, we can help you, to think about how to best manage this foreign exchange risks, which, both the developers and the NEA are exposed to. So this is about a $600 million investment, primary coming from the private sector, but still, MEGA, IDA, would come in to make this happen, in absence of which it will be very difficult for the private sector to come in. Or if they come in, their cost, the risk they'll face will be much higher than need to be. So I also want to just mention that how we support regional integration. As you know, as some of you know, that we have been supporting this cross-border transmission line project, and the first phase of this project completed last year, that enable Nepal to import additional 160 megawatt of electricity. So that will help a lot in reducing the load shedding. But the project is still on the way. We expect they still need about at least 2 years to complete. We expect that by end of this project, Nepal will be able to import up to 600 megawatts from India, if needed. But in the longer term, this cross-border transmission line, will be able to send the energy both ways. When Nepal has surplus power, when there's demand from India or Bangladesh, this transmission line will help, to carry that energy as well. What I want to sort of wrap up here is that to enable to fully explore the hydro potential in Nepal, and to support projects like Karnali, Chissapani. The regional dimension is very important. The investments are very important, and the public sector investments will not be enough, to support this scale. Maybe to mobilize private sector financing, it's not just sounds good, but it's actually absolutely needed. And from World Bank perspective, we believe that first they really need to improve the institutional regulatory reform. And I'm talking about Nepal here, but I think for regional projects, it's actually it involves more than one country. But for Nepal, they also for Nepal, so far most of the projects have been small, medium size. One of the largest projects that will come online is at Tamakushi. And we believe that Nepal really need to acquire experience in developing large hydro projects, and you can only acquire such experience by doing it. And then we also believe that the transmission and distribution infrastructure is very important, and oftentimes this is not of interest to the private sector. So by supporting, the transmission and the distribution, there's an enabling infrastructure. It actually it will be supporting the hydropower development. So I'll stop here, and I'm happy to take a couple questions if necessary. But I'm afraid that I cannot stay through the end of this session.
Thank you very much, Ms. Xiao Peng Wong. Your presentation on the energy sector MFD collaborations across World Bank, as well as the regional integration initiatives, it was very, very helpful and eye-opening for us. We have a few questions here. We hope that you would stay on for asking those 2 questions, and then we would go on to our next presenters. The first question is from Bhutan. It says, looking at the size of the project of Karnali Chissapani, is World Bank Group, including IFC, involved in financing these sorts of big projects? And usually up to what limit is the financing done?
Yes, thanks very much for the question. What I can say is that, Nantong 2 in Laos is a good example where World Bank IFC have been involved in large scale project. So yes, we are open to this project, to largest, yeah, large hydro project. I think, in terms of World Bank engagement in this kind of project, it's really done by case by case basis. At the moment, in Nepal, we have got a request from the government to work on the upper room project. As you know, many of you know that it's potentially a very large project as well.
All right, thank you very much. We have another question. It says, can you explain more about the mandate of MEGA and IDA?
Yes, IDA means International Development Association. So the World Bank Group has sort of 5 members, including IDA, which is primarily targeting low-income countries and provide financing on very concessional terms. Either grant or interest-free or low-interest loan, and with grace period up to 80 years, and the maturity up to 38 years. And then we have another group called RBRD. It's the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And these primarily are targeting the middle income countries, and the terms, lending terms are less concessional, but still concessional. I believe currently is at a LIBOR plus a couple hundred base points. And then we have a member of IFC, which is sort of the member, a World Bank Group member working directly with the private sector. They can provide equity investment and debt investment, as well as technical assistance, but they work directly with the private sector without a sovereign guarantee. And then we have MEGA. I think MEGA is an agency for mitigating political risks, political guarantee. And they are, MEGA is mainly to come in to help the private sector to navigate the space of political risks, and they provide a guarantee against the risk. And then we have another member is ICIT. ICIT is actually for arbitration. So when there's and it's sort of relatively, it's an independent body. When there's a dispute where they can use ICIT as one of their avenues for dispute and conflicts.
Thank you very much, Ms. Xiaoping. This presentation has been really helpful for us in order to know more about the collaborations, energy sector collaborations across the World Bank Group, as well as what kind of work you are doing in Nepal. So I thank you again, and hopefully we will we'll stay in touch for other future collaborations and webinars as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity again, and I hope definitely look forward to stay in touch.
Thank you. So now we move on to our next presentation. The next presentation is on the strategy and challenges for development of Karnali Chissapani as a regional power project, and it is going to be presented by Mr. Mujib Ahmed. Mr. Mujib Ahmed is the founding member of the Designment Consulting Engineers Private Limited. Mr. Mujib has 38 years of extensive experience on various aspects of engineering projects. His experience includes site solution preparation and execution of site investigation studies necessary for design of foundation. Setting criteria is for design of civil engineering projects, ascertaining specifications and drawing special conditions of contracts specific to project needs. From the very start of his career, he has been managing execution of projects on behalf of client, touching all aspects of project management. Starting with design of building structures, including industrial buildings and bridges, he has four infrastructure power projects and other water-related projects, including hydropower projects. He holds a bachelor's in civil engineering and a master's in civil engineering as well from USA, and is registered with Pakistan Engineering Council as a professional engineer. I welcome you, Mr. Mujib Ahmed. Along with Mr. Mujib, we have Mr. Ziauddin from Elan Partners as well. Mr. Mujib, can you hear me? If yes, you may present your slide deck for everyone to look at.
Thank you. This is Mujib. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to present our views on Karnali hydropower project. We got involved, we got this opportunity, as a matter of fact, when we were involved for peer review on this project, and we presented a study regarding that. And now, when you invited us for this workshop, I think we are happy to be part of it, because that gave us insight into what other entities and people have been doing on this project, and it was quite informative for us. So thank you for involving us in this.
I am Ziauddin, and I am heading the Elan Partners, and I am an electrical engineer involved in all sorts of power sector projects. Worked for the Planning Commission for 20 years for planning this hydropower, planning this energy sector. And now I am working for Elan Partners Privately Limited since last about 15 years. Mujib will take the lead in the presentation, and I'll be assisting them wherever I need. Just confirm it, please, that can you see my laptop screen properly?
Yes, sir, we can hear you properly and we can see your screen. You may proceed with the presentation.
Good, thank you. So over to Mujib.
Thank you, Zia. Now, as far as this presentation is concerned, I think we were starting from the findings of our peer review, and then we will go on to other sections, which will cover the strategy and the way forward and the challenges. So starting this peer review, as we whatever the information we got and all the studies which were previously done, we understand that the project is basically a multi-purpose project with the storage for irrigation and electricity through hydropower plant and flood mitigation being the dominant features. However, the introduction and subsequent study which we went through lays more emphasis mainly on the hydropower utilization of the project and little on the other allied purposes. I guess the basic this is because the Karnali hydropower project started as a hydropower project, and later on it was converted into a multi-purpose project. So the studies that were carried out were basically with the emphasis on hydropower project. So that's why we feel that further studies need to be done, which would cover other aspects like the storage and the flood mitigation, and then come up with a balanced view of the project. And further, since as I said earlier, that we feel that it needs to have a balanced approach with a multi-purpose hydro project as the emphasis. So the project needs to be in two phases. The phase one should be the study, which should include, as I said earlier, the emphasis on the project being a multi-purpose project. And then once that part of the study is completed, then we go to a phase two, which is the tendering of the detailed design and the construction of the project. So this is how we feel that it should be taken up. Then the political and socio-economic and financial situation and other related issues which can confront the regional electricity trade market among the regional countries have not been touched upon in the earlier reports, which is very crucial for regional development of the project. And the probable financing model, resources and implementation approach has not been discussed earlier. So these need to be taken up when the further studies are carried out. From whatever studies we went through up till now, the Karnali project, hydropower project, is considered to be a technical viable project. It's technically viable project. It is also envisaged that the updated feasibility will make it more relevant to the present conditions and future needs. Even on the basis of the studies carried out so far, one can conclude that it is a feasible project while taking into account the cost of the project and the benefits that can be accrued from it. However, one needs to ensure while formulating the tariff model that the proposed tariff should be within the range of prevailing tariff in the region.
This is also very important. The tariff issue is also very, very important because every country related to this region have their own generation mix, and they have their own benchmark tariff, and therefore it is very important that any other regional country like Pakistan, like India, like Afghanistan, wherever you go, will like to take the electricity from this Karnali plant only and only if it is economically and financially viable proposition. Therefore, the tariff modeling becomes a very crucial part of the entire study, and it will make it can make the make and breakthrough proposition for the project. That's my understanding. Please, Minister.
So as it was shown in the earlier presentation also, that this project with a price tag of approximately $20 billion, it is not probably feasible to be taken up by the Nepalese government only, because the potential that is already there and being exploited by other IPPs, the demand for this additional 10,000 might not be there immediately, at least. The project could be possible only if it is developed while taking into account the regional demand and more appropriately the demand in the neighboring country of India. As you can see, that the location of the project is such that it is at the northern end of the region, and in absence of a regionally connected network, the best option would be wheeling from the project into neighboring countries of India. by utilizing the existing network and connecting it appropriately to the neighboring countries at convenient locations and points. Now, the thing is that, as Mr. Zia said, that taking it up on a regional basis, you have to take into account the distance of this project from the neighboring other users, apart from India, and then comes into play the distribution network and the connectivity from this project. Now, if you think about Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Afghanistan, then you have to look at the distance it is from the project. So the wheeling and the existing networks will have to be taken into account as well. And so these are some of the challenges that this project would pose upon the the planners. You see.
To add this thing regarding the distances of the project, yes, it is very important, and it is very its other importance is also there, because you see taking the power right from the extreme end at in Nepal and taking up to, say for example, up to Afghanistan, it is a very long distance, and the long distance has its own impact in the transmission of the power, like its security, its, and more importantly in financial terms, it's a power losses during the transmission. So as I said earlier, that the tariff modeling, which is a very critical thing, needs to be looked into all these aspects as well. Yes, please.
Well, regional cooperation has been a dream on a global stage since the start of statehood. It has been in practice in different parts of the world in many aspects, bearing fruitful results. However, its success has depended largely on factors that are driven by politics. As we understand and as we look at projects around the world, we have seen that the the technical viability of the projects is not much of a problem. It's always a cost-related thing. But the politics play a very large role when we are talking about on regional terms, and the long-term aspects of such collaborations have not always borne very good results. So that's one aspect which would be a challenge. Within the SARS region, as we know, very little, if at all, has been accomplished in the spirit and name of regional cooperation. An atmosphere of distrust looms among different sets of countries within the SARC, making it very difficult for implementing projects on the basis of cooperation. And I'm afraid, but I think it's a reality which we need uh, to express here, and that is the animosity between Pakistan and India, which dominates the whole regional cooperation issues. So these are some of the challenges, and which are very much on real challenges, which need to be overcome before we talk about any such project to be accomplished and to be implemented. So these, however, I would like to, mention some of the projects which have been thought about in the past, and you would know what their fate has been, like the Pak-Iran-India gas pipeline. Now, this was something based on a regional basis, and then comes in the embargo on Iran and the pressure from the Western and the USA for not implementing this project. And we have been trying for the last so many years, but the project has not really come into execution because of this political pressures. But there are some good spots as well, like Afghanistan Pakistan trade has been there for last 60 70 years, and this cooperation has, I think, borne fruitful results. Similarly, the Nepal Iran trade has been going on for a very long time now. But there has been hiccups every now and then. But the cooperation and the ground realities have somehow have been uh, upheld, and there has been cooperation on within these two countries. Similarly, India and Sri Lanka have been doing quite a few things together over the years. Pakistan, Sri Lanka has been doing, but on a regional basis, which would involve all these countries. I think I have no qualms about not mentioning that the India-Pakistan issues have played a lot of role in on this, the projects not being implemented. And this is a huge challenge. The technical or the financial feasibilities of the projects are not that much of a problem, but it's the politics, which is a huge challenge, and that's something that we need to look into if you want to go ahead with this project. You lost. Go way forward.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we feel that since we would like to go ahead with the project, and that some of these challenges, I believe, as we go along, will be resolved. Let us look at all this positively. And looking at that, I think the first thing is to to take up this project, as I said earlier, in two phases. One would be the updation of the feasibility and the into a multi-purpose hydropower project, and then this phase two would be going into detailed design and the tendering process. The financing of the project can come from many sources. Once it is to be developed, and once we move forward, I think every country can chip in as to whatever the benefit, based on the proportional benefits being accrued from the project. Everybody can chip in accordingly, and then India, I'm sure, will be benefiting mostly from it. So they would probably come up with the lion's share of the equity. And once I believe that equity is in place, IFC and other donor agencies would love to come into this project. So then would be the phase of implementation execution, by starting with the tendering and tendering process and all that. I believe this whole process can take about 2 to 3 years, and then it's a 8 to 9 years project.
9 years at least.
9 years project. So those are the aspects which are not really that difficult to overcome. But the challenges would be to getting all these countries together, to clearing that the aspect of any distrust, and coming up with tariffs which are feasible for all the regional countries who would be involved. Thank you.
Uh, uh, let me add a thing which I was listening about the strategy of the or the steps in implementation of the project. I mean the phases. The phase one to update of the feasibility study, and then going towards the next stage of what you call as the implementation of the project. But the things which are being suggested, that in the phase one only the feasibility study would be updated, and thereafter in second stage, that is the when the owners engineers will come into field, they will get the more studies, and so on and so forth. My point of view that technically speaking, the for before going into its implementation phase, one have to go another phase in between the two, and that is that it's preparation of the documents, the detailed engineering design, and at the time of the detailed engineering design, additional need of additional study could be identified, and that could be taken up at the time of implementation of the project by the EPC contractor. I mean, this way you can limit the EPC contractor for putting some extra amount for doing those detailed studies which are needed actually at the implementation stage. So this is what my additional observation, which I listened during the various presentations which is being done since morning, and I had noted this thing as well. With this, thank you very much, and for any question, we are available.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mujib Ahmed and Mr. Ziauddin, for your talk on the challenges and strategy for development of Karnali Chissapani. We do have one question for you, which we received just now. It said that there are a number of areas that are needed for to be explored further. Can you shed some light on the environmental impact of this project?
Basically, yes, of course, there would be a major environmental impact, and it has to be studied in detail. Exactly what has to be done, I don't think so that I'll be able to tell you something, because you for giving you some detail or some exactness of the things, you need to go and look into the site. It would have major reservoir. It would need a major resettlement action plan. You need to look into the its ecosystem as well, because with the climate change things and the other things happening, the ecosystem is getting disturbed day by day. And with a steady, when you get into that, you need to work on that, and you need to get it done very thoroughly. At this is a stage of time, I perhaps I am unable to say that what exactly need to be done, but it has to be done properly before embarking on the construction of this site. Rather, I can say that in the feasibility stage, when you are going to update it, these all issues have to be taken care. Yes, please.
Thank you very much, sir. With this, we don't have any further questions at the moment. So with this, we conclude your session, which was on the strategy and challenges for development of Karnali Chissapani as a regional power project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mujib and Mr. Zawdeen, for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. Now we move on to the next part, which is the question answer session. Basically, we during the course of this webinar, we have received a lot of questions from various countries, and the people want to clarify some thoughts as well as some concepts. So we have with us a list of questions, and we would like to go back to our original study team consisting of Mr. D.N. Raina, Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai, and Mr. Mahesh Acharya for the answers of these questions. So, Mr. Durganath and Mr. Leelanath Bhattarai, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I am hearing you.
Yeah, tell me, is this Mr. Pradhan? Mr.
Yes,
Pradhan, tell me one thing, how we are, you will be reading out the questions or how is it?
yes, we will be reading out the question, and then you will have the chance to answer. Your mic is turned on, and then you will be able to answer the questions.
That is
So,
fine. We are already at, just a moment. Before we move on, we are already at 2:26 and I have an appointment thereafter. I would appreciate if you could just restrict the questions to a very limited number, maybe 4, 5, not more than that.
sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Because I have a meeting lined up thereafter.
Sure, sir. Sure. Probably the other team members would like to continue after you leave. So,
I don't know. Most likely, Leela was telling me yesterday they too are busy. They have something else also. So let us restrict the questions to for not more than 5 questions. Whichever
sure,
are
sir.
the most
Okay, sir.
critical, choose the 5 most critical questions and we will answer to that.
Okay,
And if you have some further questions that we can discuss, you need to just organize a meeting in person. While participants and presenters will be face to face facing and have it at
okay,
least
sir.
a 2 day
Sir,
program.
we will let's discuss that further, but let's moving on to the questions first. The first question is, what is the total generation expected from the main dam and associate levelized tariff? So the question is about the tariff expectations.
Just a moment. I would like to answer before Leelaji, before you start giving the generation figures, I would like to say nothing at the moment can be said about the levelized tariff because you don't have a project ready right now. Unless you have the feasibility study done completely, design, engineering, everything, you have firmed up the costs. Then only you can come with the tariff. You cannot be coming up with the tariff at this moment. The indicative tariff of the previous study can be just quoted is available at the moment. And Leela ji will be giving you the figure of generation. Leela ji, just give them the figure of generation.
So I am referring the document just because it is not ready. I have to refer the document.
Yes.
I am referring the document.
Yes, yes.
Pricing, other benefits, types and
Levelized cost.
level costs, level Chinese cost.
This is 3.3 cent per kilowatt hour for the peak power. 3.3 cents.
That was in 19.
Okay, sir.
So
Thank you very much.
This is 1988 price level. This is for the
Okay.
peak power.
Okay, sir. Okay. So to the original person who asked the question, the levelized tariff is 3.3 cents per kilowatt hour at peak level and at 1988 price levels.
That's
Uh,
right.
so
Yes.
so moving on to the quickly moving on to the next question. We have is the downstream re-regulating dam, is it just for irrigation only, or does it also produce power as well?
It has two functions. One function is for re-regulation for the irrigation benefit. That is one function. Other function is downstream riverine environmental requirement. And third is power generation. It can generate 84 megawatt power.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So the third question, basically, it is sort of a comment by Mr. Ziauddin. He mentioned that the second stage of the study should not be done by the consultant. Rather, it should be left to the EPC contractor to carry it out. So, what are your comments on this?
लीला जी पहले आप बताइए फिर मैं बता दूंगा.
Okay. Okay.
Please go ahead, then I will just sum it up.
Very important question. Now you see, this is a mega project, very large project. Our opinion is it should not be leave for the EPC contractor. It should be BOQ. Okay, because quality is the first. If something goes wrong, it will have very big adverse effect at the downstream. Okay, so because of that reason, I think it should be in the traditional BOQ contract, not EPC contract.
Moreover, there's another issue also in hydropower project because there is a significant geological risk associated with it.
May I,
Cannot be hydropower.
Mahesh ji, may I chip in here? Mahesh ji,
Yes.
can I chip in here?
Yes.
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
There are two things to it. First, as explained by Mr. Lilaji, had it been a relatively small project, then everything could have been left for phase 2, could have been given to the EPC contractor, he would do it, is one thing. But the big question, as Lilaji has put in, it is not a single commodity project, it is a multi-purpose project. And that multi-purpose project, one of the biggest benefits of this project are going to be not power generation alone, it will be irrigation and flood control. Rather, in the present environmental conditions, flood control may perhaps supersede all the other benefits, even power and irrigation as well. Because every year in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, billions and billions of dollars of loss takes place due to flooding. So just back up the envelope calculations, I believe that the flood control benefits may supersede other benefits when the total benefits are taken into cognizance, is one thing. Secondly, after completing a detailed feasibility study with all environmental, social, every damn thing, and those studies have to be, as we have put in, as Maheshji was explaining to you in the TOR, that those studies have to fully match whether it is a rehabilitation and resettlement plan, it is the environmental assessment as an impact assessment study or any other studies. They have to be in conformity with the best global standards. Because the time whoever is going to consider this project for financing, they will see whether those all aspects match the global standards. It is not a small project where you can just compromise a little bit here or compromise a little bit there. Thirdly, we have suggested several of the studies, as the other Iran consultants were saying, power market study, power load flow studies, and all those things have to be just undertaken in greater depth, so that you actually know exactly where the generation is taking place and to which places the power can flow to. Thirdly, right now the Indian grid is totally integrated. In India, you have one power grid, which can just flow power from the eastern border to the western or northern border to the southern border. But that is not the case with other countries. Suppose, for instance, if Pakistan is to the power is to go to Afghanistan during some period, then the load flow study of the Pakistan system will be equally important. The transmission corridors have to be there. The existing systems have to be evaluated. And the redundancies in the transmission systems in each of the systems have to be worked out. That will give the transmission costs. That is why I am saying these type of things cannot be discussed on a Skype conference. You need to be face to face and you will just stand up and explain all those things. There will be so many things which need to be done, but EPC, giving every right to EPC contractor, it is that can be fatal for the project. And no international organization will agree for that. Unless you have the complete project design, detailed, and every damn thing in hand. You cannot be going for financing, and unless you have the finance.
Okay, sir, point taken. The point taken. Let's move on to the next question. This next question is from Mr. Gopal Basnat from Nepal. He says
Yes.
many other attractive hydropower sites are falling under full reservoir level of Karnali and they have been identified, but we are unable to tap them due to the Karnali project. In this scenario, should Nepal either develop the new identified projects or wait for Karnali project? So what is your suggestion?
My suggestion there is the first thing is that let the SARC identify the project sponsors for this project. Which are the countries who are interested?
We can't hear you.
SARC needs to organize a meeting of energy ministers. Those energy ministers need to take a decision which are the countries who are interested in the project. Are all the 8 countries interested, or 4 or 3 or 5 or whatever number is interested? It is those stakeholders, they have to give confidence to the Nepal government. Yes, we will bring this project within this time span, because Nepal cannot be waiting for the SARC to come up with a project. Whether that comes or not is a different question, and when that comes. So Nepal will have to take a call finally whether to just build the downstream projects or the Karnali or whichever options they have before them. So first of all, what my request to the SAARC Energy Center and SAARC is, let there be called a meeting of the SAARC energy ministers at the ministerial level. Decide on which are the countries who are interested in participating in this project and what should be. We can provide you some guidance about the equity participation or the shareholding or the financing pattern and other things on that, but it has the decision has to be taken and an intergovernmental agreement between those countries has to be signed formally. That will give the that will be the first stepping stone for the development of this project. I believe I am clear about that.
All right, sir. Thank you
Hello?
very much. Sir, thank you very much. There's one final question from Mr. Divas Basniat. He says the scope of TOR seems to be lacking in calculation estimation of non-power benefits like irrigation, flood control, etc. The power benefit sharing is straightforward, unlike the non-power benefits. So why are the non-power benefits not discussed in detail?
They will not be discussed because they were not discussed in the earlier report as well.
Okay, so the report's focus was on power benefits, right?
No, we have covered it because our main focus is this project should be treated as multiple project in true nature, just not only for name. The name of the project should be Karnali Chissapani multipurpose project, not Karnali Chissapani hydropower project. It is Karnali Chissapani multipurpose project. So optimization must be based on the benefit of power, benefit of flood control, benefit of irrigation. These are the major benefits. Okay, not only
Leelaji, I would just like to come in here. The question is not that whether we have touched that or not. What he is wanting to know, the person who has raised the question is that we have not quantified the benefits from the flood control and irrigation. The scope of work of this team. Listen to me. The scope of this team was not to assess those benefits. The scope of this team was to review the feasibility study done in previous studies and especially the feasibility study done in 1989 or 90 and see what are the things which need to be updated and what are the missing links therein. That is what we have done. Now estimating the benefits of flood control and estimating the benefits of irrigation and other things, those are much detailed studies and they had not been even done in the previous study. The time Karnali Chissapani project the feasibility was done. That has to be done. That is why we are laying much stress that the new feasibility study, there has to be a component for the evaluating the actual benefits of irrigation, water flood control, and some other benefits as well, which may emerge in the present. Because I will just give you another benefit. 1989, there was no carbon trading. You got me? Now that is going to be a huge benefit for this project, from this project.
Well done.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You need to be clear about what somebody is asking.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much, dear participants, Mr. D.N. Raina, Mr. Leonard Bhattarai, and Mr. Mahesh Acharya for joining us as well as
Sir, just a moment, 1 minute. Before you close the session, I would just like to address my Elan friends.
Yes,
it is not happening for the first time that a regional project is being talked about and things have not been taking shape for the last 3-4 decades. I have been a part of the IPPI, I have been a part of TAPI, I have been a part of the Qatar, Iran, Pakistan, India pipeline. I have been part of several other initiatives for the last 20-30 years. And I have been involved in updating those studies, the feasibility studies, pre-feasibility studies as well. I do 100% agree with you that the India-Pakistan relations are just hampering the development within the SAARC region. There is no doubt about that. I, as an Indian, can frankly tell you that thing. It is happening. But somewhere we have to break the ice. Let this be the project. Let IPIP be the project. As the TAPI is going to become a project, I am hopeful that that should happen. So unless we develop, do joint endeavors to do some economic activity together, we are not going to gain confidence and we are not going to gain trust. And these are the things which will help you resolve the other issues as well. That was one of the emphasis of my presentation. Cooperation in energy, cooperation in energy sector is going to lay the foundation for the cooperation in all other sectors. That is what happened in Europe. That is, you have a eurozone today, and that is what is happening right now in East Asia. So be positive about things, and we will be able to do it, provided our governments agree to that.
Yes, sir. We totally agree with you that with the mutual collaboration and by actually coming up with these big projects, the other problems will also be solved. And basically, we have to follow the example of European Union, ASEAN, and others in the region. So we totally agree with you. And with that comment that we have to go for mutual collaboration, we would like to conclude our webinar. Thank you everyone for attending today's session of the webinar. We listened to some very excellent presentations delivered by our distinguished presenters from member states and around other regions around the globe. Especially our study team, you presented a very comprehensive overview of the feasibility study of Karnali Chissapani hydropower project. All the presentations will be available on SARC Energy Center's website, www.sarcenergy.org. We would love to hear from you any other suggestions, comments, or if you have any more questions, you may email to us directly. Your comments are welcome for further improvement, as well as any suggested topics of your interest on which you want us to arrange future webinars. We would gladly do that. And with me signing out, I thank you once again for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.